Welcome to Norse Code, the #1 podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. I'm your host and producer. My name is James Pagashnik. Thank you guys so much for listening. And at the other end of the tin cannon string, we have our analyst and co-host. You know him from numerous blogs and podcasts around the internet, most notably from the Wide Left Substack. He is Mr. Useful Human, Arif Hassan. Arif, I'd love to start talking about the game we just watched between Baltimore and KC. However, we just got called for illegal formation again.
We just won't learn. We just won't learn.
Just move them up. Just move them up a little bit. Have them line up better. So this was obviously something that they are going to attempt to call more this year, despite the fact they didn't call it once on KC, but called it 4 times on the same player, I believe the same player, for Baltimore. Can you explain briefly the rule that they are trying to enforce?
Yeah, I'm actually really annoyed at the way football media covered this, because it's like very simple. I had like a friend text me like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I explained it to her, and she was like, "Wait, I've hated that for years. I'm glad they're calling it. It's just when the tackle sets too far back from the line of scrimmage. People have been complaining about tackles doing this for a couple of years now, especially Juwan Taylor for the Chiefs. But like, just generally speaking, this has been a concern that people have had. The tackles are just like not lining up on the line of scrimmage, and it's making it difficult for outside speed rushers to gain leverage against unathletic tackles. It's giving them an unfair advantage, and it's been against the rules. It's been against the rules since like the 50s. There's a way to determine how far back you can go. It was described at the beginning of the broadcast. You basically run a line through the center of the belt of the center. And that's, your front foot has to be touching that line or something along those lines, right? But yeah, it was called on them for being too far back. And when I explained this to my friend, she was like, "Yeah, I hate these V-shaped offensive lines." And yeah, I agree. Actually, that sucks. I think that you have to be good at offensive tackle to play it. So I think a lot of reporters either didn't know that, which would be very surprising to me, or just weren't explaining it, and they were just like, penalties. And it's like, look, it is illegal, so they should call it. Like, I don't know how else to explain it to you. They're committing a penalty, and I would rather that they call the penalty. And if the other team doesn't figure it out and change what they're doing, you keep calling the penalty. I remember when people were complaining about like the Seahawks dynasty, right? Like 2013, the Seahawks kept on, holding downfield and stuff like that. And they had a strategy. They would even say it out loud that they would hold downfield enough times that the refs got too tired of calling it. Well, I'm glad that the refs didn't get too tired of calling it. And it was mostly on the first drive. And so the 2 other times it was called, because technically an illegal formation was called on Rashad Bateman. Obviously, it wasn't the same category of penalty. So the 2 other times it was called, people were like, ugh. And every time a penalty was thrown, everyone was like, oh my God, so many penalties in this game. And it's like, yeah, that's not the ref's fault actually this time. Like a lot of times refs will be overzealous with throwing flags and stuff like that. I sympathize with people who get really upset about that. I get upset about that. No, this is just a case where the refs are doing the thing and the players are committing the penalties. And people are like, these refs just want screen time. No, they got a mandate from the league to do this. They would be judged harshly. They all get graded at the end of the week, and it would reflect poorly on their grades, and it affects their assignments for things like the playoffs. Like, they have to call it. It's not because they want to call it. So I'm glad that they did it. Like, that's get better at offensive tackle. This has been an issue for years, and just because one team refused to adapt doesn't make it the ref's fault. Like, you should not set the precedent that because it's annoying to the viewer to see flags happen all the time, that you can just brute force your way into doing something illegal every play. Like, that's an awful precedent. You shouldn't allow that at all. So I'm glad the refs did it. The Ravens kept committing the penalty. Boo on them for doing it.
It feels like something they could have, figured out after that second penalty. Hey, we need to move up just a hair. Just a little bit.
Yeah, Chris Collinsworth even said, he's like, why can't you just move up? It's just just do it.
Another beautiful nugget of wisdom from Chris Collinsworth.
Yeah, just
now there's a guy who needs to move up a little bit.
Yeah, I think Collinsworth kind of nailed it on the broadcast tonight, if I'm being honest. But yeah, no, it's very simple. And the thing is, they were warned beforehand. All the players have meetings with the refs beforehand, like in training camp. Like anything that is a point of emphasis, the refs will discuss in the meeting with players. And then you have it in training camp. They call it in training camp. Then you have it in the preseason. Some people are like, I didn't notice this in the preseason. It's like, well, yeah, you're not watching every preseason game, which is good. Don't do that. Your team didn't do it, so you're fine. It turns out, like, I think, was it the Jaguars? The Jaguars or some team did it like 3 times in a game as well. Like, it gets called. It got called in the preseason. The fact that the Ravens, weren't doing, like, that's on the Ravens. People getting annoyed should be annoyed at the Ravens for committing the penalty the whole time. I feel like an old man, like, you just shouldn't commit the crime if you don't want to get caught. It's not the cop's fault.
It's the Michael Bolton from Office Space thing. They're the one who sucks. Like, come on.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts on that. Great game, though. Oh, my God. Holy crap.
That was very fun. And I loved the fact that Harbaugh immediately wanted to go for 2 at the end. Despite the fact that likely toe is being what happened. Like, this was, like, he was immediately going for the kill. And I appreciated that so much because that defense for KC was just cooked. They were tired.
They were, and they were doing so well for most of the game. And then, that last drive. I mean, both teams were shooting themselves in the foot that last drive. Chris Jones was, like, out of gas. You could totally tell, which I don't want to take away from, like, the pass protection on that play from Justice Hill. But, like, the Ravens were making mistake after mistake. The Chiefs obviously were making mistake after mistake. But, like, Justice Hill has an opportunity to run out of bounds, and instead he cuts infield. That takes another 30 seconds off the clock. It doesn't need to, right? They get the deep shot to Rashad Bateman, go Gophs, and they run. They don't even run up to the line of scrimmage. They hastily mosey up to the line of scrimmage, and then get set to run a play. And they run a play, and then Lamar takes too long to run the play, right? And they probably should have spiked it. And most of the time, I actually think that spiking it is inefficient, that you shouldn't do it, and that the amount of time it takes to spike, already, you have to get set. You have to spend a second making sure that you follow the rules for getting set, all that. And you could just run a play, and the down that you lose from spiking it is actually more valuable than teams realize. In this case, that's not true because you weren't going to get a 4th down if you didn't spike it. So you might as well spike it, get the play you want in, give your players a rest, make sure that everybody's on the same, because people were clearly not on the same page. And you might want to take advantage of, like, a lot of people will have their teams run like a very quick, after an explosive, just run a preset play for your post-explosive plays, so you can take advantage of the defense being off kilter. But that really wasn't it because you had to manage the time. So the Ravens kind of shot themselves in the foot. The Chiefs kind of shot themselves in the foot at the end. But it was a phenomenal game. Lamar Jackson was doing some crazy stuff we haven't seen in a while from him, even last year in MVP season. Patrick Mahomes is doing insane Mahomes stuff, just absurd cartoon character stuff. At least 2 plays, I think 3, where I couldn't have a reaction other than, that's impossible. That's really cool. Yeah. And that doesn't include, like, the times he went, like, diagonal, like a 45-degree angle to the ground to throw the ball. Like, he's throwing the ball from the worst position imaginable, and he completes, like, an out route. Just insane.
I'm enjoying this being the real rivalry in the AFC, like, between these two. Not Buffalo. I'm sorry, you've tried. It's your time is your window is closed. It is now Lamar and Mahomes. But they were making, like, Lamar was making some, like, odd early season mistakes too, like ball placement on that one drive where he could have been leading the receiver, and instead it just ended up going, like, over his head, like the pass got broken up. Just, come on. Like, just lead him a little bit further, and then the over the head that nearly got picked too. It's like
both of those. The Zay Flowers miss in the end zone. That was pretty bad. No, I mean, like Lamar was making more mistakes than we're used to seeing, I think, from him. I mean, I know the Chiefs were doing some weird. I mean, they didn't target Kelsey for a little bit, and then when they did, it was like on screens and stuff early on. It wasn't until later that they got him going. But like I think primarily it was like Lamar, and the right tackle situation for the Ravens is really weird. They're rotating in the right tackles. That's new. I mean, it's not new. I've seen teams do it, but it's just like I don't like it. I don't think they like it, but they don't have an answer yet at right tackle, so they keep on changing who it is, which I think probably contributed to this penalty thing.
Yeah, Kofi at Kofi on Twitter with my favorite tweet of the night. My sports conspiracy theory is that Chris Collinsworth owns the Reality Stone. I agree. I think that's kind of where we're at. So, welcome to this episode of Norse Code. Welcome to the regular season. We got the kickoff and everything all off here. We're going to be talking about some Vikings football here in just a few minutes. But before we get to that and the mailbag, just want to thank you so much for listening to Norse Code. If you enjoy the show and would like to help us out financially, you can do so in a couple of different ways. You can help us out over at patreon.com/NorseCode, where for $3.50 a month, or a little less for the bonus, a little less for the year subscription rather, you get access to bonus materials, which I'm going to be putting out a new episode here in the next few days. You get access to the Discord, all of that over at patreon.com/NorseCode. A special thank you to Noah Bolin and Nathan Bradley. I may have mentioned you last episode, I cannot remember, but Noah Bolin, Nathan Bradley, thank you so much for helping us out over on Patreon. And a special paypal.me/NorseCode donation came in from Gregory. Thank you so much. I'm assuming it's Gregory based on the spelling here, but thank you so much for your donation. We really do appreciate it. That is fantastic for us, and this is the sort of stuff that keeps us ad free. This is the sort of stuff that makes it so that we don't have to be shilling PFF on Twitter or in our articles or anything. This is the sort of thing that keeps us alive and kicking for 11 years now. I may have gone apologies if are you doing anything with PFF now, or are you doing something with
Pro Football Reference?
Good. Okay, so it wasn't PFF there, so we were fine. Yeah. So I didn't disparage a potential sponsor for a reef there. So good. I'm glad.
There is no disparagement clause in my ambassador agreement with Pro Football Reference, by the way. So we could just go in if we want.
Fantastic. Let me tell you about the tools that are still messed up to this day.
Okay, I do have one issue though, and it's that when you look at total passing yards in the total passing yards column at the season end for quarterbacks, I believe it still subtracts their sack yardage in the tables, which screws up all of the math. It's so bad. It may do that for teams, but I believe it also does that for the individual players. That's bad, and it sucks, and don't do it. So that bothers me to no end. So that's the thing. In the passing leaderboard section, in the passing yards column, automatically deducts the sack yardage, and then later has a sack yardage thing. Maybe that's no longer true. That's my problem with PFR. You didn't make me sign a non-disparagement clause, so that's what you get.
You get what I actually think. Oh, there's some sponsors that would have some fun with that. Well, if you'd like to just now that we're finished with that, we also have merchandise for sale over at norsecode.threadless.com. There are plenty of wonderful things. I have seen a couple of new items in person because I gave Erin a birthday gift. It was I had given her the beach towel of the 10-year thing just as a joke, and it is crystal clear. So I highly suggest people go out and get the beach towel. You should always just have a towel. That's kind of the thing. So don't forget your towel and get it over at norsecode.threadless.com.
Is this like a don't panic moment? Were we making a Hitchhiker's reference with the towel thing?
I mean, I was.
Oh, okay, great. I wasn't sure.
This is why I'm here.
People don't reference Douglas Adams anymore. When you see a reference out in the wild, it's just like, that's nice.
Yeah.
Are those robots playing cricket? That's nice.
Sometimes the Dolphins are waving goodbye. As is tradition, we like to get a guest on with a different point of view than Arif's, maybe to give us an idea of what's kind of changed for the team that we're playing in week 1, and get a good idea as to what to expect in matchups and all of that. And well, this week we're just going to harass Arif a little bit longer. We have the person who's been drawing Arif in anime for the past 2 weeks until Arif admits that he either has watched or is starting to watch anime. Please welcome DrawPlayDave. Hi, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me back on. It's always nice to come on here and just poke Arif with a stick.
Sure.
Just repeatedly jab him in the sides. Just like find like the most sensitive rib and just like keep poking it.
Do you have a power ranking of my ribs?
Not that you're gonna find out.
I will.
Those are trade secrets.
I will admit that Arif's very nice anniversary post on Wide Left that was really in depth and really personal about his struggles and things that he deals with on a daily basis, and the joy he's found in writing over the past year has made it harder to bully him. But I'm willing to push through for the bit. So we are going to push through on this.
How big of you? Wow, that's so magnanimous.
This is as selfless as I get. Is
overcoming the obstacles of empathy and kindness.
Yes, the Norse code story. Why is that? Why is that some form of a surprise?
The most important part of overcoming struggle is making sure you continue to have a struggle to overcome, and that's what we're here for.
Thank you.
It's the hero's journey.
My next year anniversary will just be dealing with you two. That's what the mental health section will be about.
I don't know why.
We're just part of your anime protagonist arc.
Oh my god.
So about this,
we're some villains along the path towards your redemption. Like you just gotta figure out the weaknesses and rise above.
So
this might make more sense if you watch anime.
Yeah, about the anime thing. You know, you've posted two two posts about it. The Discord absolutely loves it, and as many people have enjoyed them on Twitter as well. What's the plan for the next drawing that we can expect?
Probably Sailor Moon.
What?
I mean, look, I've done 2 easy male characters. I gotta do like a cute kawaii girl at some point, right? Like that's half of the genre.
Can I make one request that I think you will regard as reasonable?
Okay.
Can the skirt be at least knee length or longer?
Not if the character's design doesn't have that.
Oh, yeah, okay. You use reference art a lot, I'm sure.
He wants to be true to the story.
It has to be true to the source material. Like, I'm not going to show anything, but yes, the skirt will be of character appropriate length according to design.
Then I will make a second request relevant to that. And again, I haven't watched anime, so let me be clear about the nature of my request is because of my friends who've watched anime. There are 2 releases of Sailor Moon. One from the 90s that a lot of people love and remember, and one from, 2 years ago that a lot of people hate. Can it be the one from the 90s?
Oh yeah. The new one, I have seen them both. I watched the original Sailor Moon when it was on Toonami with Dragon Ball Z back when I was a kid. I did briefly look at the one that came out several years ago, and it's not the same. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were, again, I haven't watched, a lot of people were excited that it's going to actually be as gay as the Japanese version was. But the rest, I guess, was so terrible that it kind of didn't matter that they were open about some of these characters actually being gay in the Japanese version. It was just too awful. Also, the character designs look ugly, right?
From what I can tell, the newest one was actually like more accurate to the manga that it would spawn from. But the original had like a lot of like, the original like worked on like those cartoon sort of principles with, so you had like a lot of episodes per season, and you'd have like filler episodes where you'd kind of like reuse a lot of animation and stuff like that. So they'd come up
better
with, like,
suited to the medium.
Yeah, like especially to the time where they would just like, hey, have these little stories, and like that was a lot of the charm of the show with all the these little episodes where it's just like Monster of the Week, where it was just like the kids, like the girls, like interacting and being friends and then fighting a monster. Whereas like the new one was actually following the plot, and the plot's honestly not that interesting.
Okay, well, I got my request in, understanding that the parameters of any other request that I might want to make are off limits, like don't do it and please stop.
Yeah.
Um,
Arif, however, was trying
It's
to
good to have
sell-
fair expectations.
Yeah, bad. Arif was trying to sell me on an idea last night about a 3 Arifs howling at a football moon t-shirt at some point.
Oh, I could probably do that.
yeah, so again,
made,
this
like,
is not
A
my
bunch
idea.
of those
Someone
parodies.
every so often, my friend groups find out that there is a merch shop that has pictures of my face available on t-shirts, or if they're enterprising enough, shower curtains and bath mats.
I had
Body pillows
the
and
shower
whatnot.
curtain up during a party last year after you guys sent it to me.
I totally
and
forgot that I
none of the
sent you one.
people who use the bathroom made a comment, and I really nobody said anything.
They were afraid.
Okay,
to. They were
we are
afraid
clearly
to.
too polite as a society.
I know.
Is what I'm learning.
Every time somebody went to the bathroom for the first time, I like looked. I was just like, "Are they going to come out and have a weird look? Am I going to hear like a weird like what?" And when they go in, but like, nope, nobody said anything. Didn't hear anything. So they were all like ashamed of me, I guess.
If you don't look at the 3-headed
Reasonable.
monster in the bathroom, it can't hurt you. Which is just a fun sentence to say.
But yeah, again, like every so often, a friend group will just find out about this, and every so often, one of them will have like a request for a new one, and I'm like, I don't actually draw any of this, and so I don't actually forward the request because I pretend I don't have any power over it. But that one was so funny that I forwarded that one to James, a 3-wolf moon shirt, except instead of the wolves, it's me.
What are you howling at though?
A football.
I
moon.
guess it says a football in the request, but I feel like we can. You're a creative guy.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Giants now that we've spent a good amount of time on our week 1 preview episode for football discussing anime. I feel like we can transition slowly to football.
Okay.
Okay.
Just
if you need a gateway, there is a football anime.
Arif, did you know that could work for you?
Yeah, no, a lot of people have told me about, what is it, Eye Shield 21
Yes.
or something?
Knew it
Yeah,
without-
again, I don't watch anime, so I'm not gonna
How
watch
is that?
that.
It's just it's amazing how he just knows these things.
I just have a good memory, and people talk to me about anime a lot, despite my assurances to them that I'm not interested.
You just seem like a guy who'd appreciate it if you just gave it a chance.
Well, I won't give it a chance, and I never have.
So the Giants this year. Obviously, last year was not a great example of what is possible from the New York Football Giants. What is more embarrassing to you as a fan, their season last year or the outfits they will be wearing for week 1?
Oh,
All
Jesus.
right. This is a pro new uniform household here. The new uniform is great. It is absolutely great. I will
Were you born
not
without
hear-
eyes?
No,
I just
it's
need to know.
fantastic. It is amazing. It is exactly what it needs to be. It's historic. They're only going to wear it like once. They're just pulling in like random historical bits from like 100 years ago. It's silly. It's an eyesore in the right way.
So I'll say this about the I did defend the uniform a little bit on Twitter. I'll say this. I think it does a really great job of kind of capturing the idea of a throwback, but the problem is the uniform only looks good in its old iteration when instead of jerseys, they just had sweaters.
Yeah, like the big long sleeves. Like that is the problem. It doesn't work with the modern structure of an NFL uniform.
And I think if you changed the pants, it might actually kind of work maybe. But they went with like the old khaki pants that like would have been like fine as like the pants they actually wore 100 years ago. But on a new uniform, when it's like shaped to the crotch and butt, like that's a different pant.
See,
it
me,
doesn't work.
To me, it's the first. It's the first outfit. It's the first uniform since that like B combination that the Steelers
No,
are doing.
the B is
Hold
still
on,
the worst. You
hold on,
cannot.
hold on. No,
okay.
hold on. Here's the point. It's the first one I've seen since the B that actually might look better in black and white. Like, I feel like that is the way to show this old-timey jersey, is just to broadcast the game in black and white, because otherwise it's going to be more of an eyesore than Daniel.
That's an interesting idea.
I like
think about that.
And I do think there's something kind of related to point out, which is that these colors are a little bit too bright. Like, I think that's also contributing.
The red is too strong. Like,
yeah, exactly.
And all the old pictures and stuff, obviously they're old pictures, so like colors are faded and everything. But like the red, it looks darker. It's not nearly as bright.
Well, and the blues too. Like, I think both the blues and the reds are just too bright. So I think that's part of it too. Yeah. But as it stands, as a football uniform using modern materials and modern cuts,
4K, 8K TV, no,
it's pretty bad. I definitely know what they're getting at, and I do like the old uniforms, but the new versions of the old uniforms are tough. They're difficult.
It was never really going to look great, but like as a celebratory gimmick for the 100th year, like it's not like their actual alt. It's not.
I mean, it does help that you don't take your football team seriously for them to have an unserious uniform be part of a good bit. I think that helps.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Like I'm thinking of like actual like atrocities, like the Buccaneers like alarm clock uniforms that they had for several years. Like that was their actual uniform. They wore that every home game.
Week.
Like this is a gimmick uniform. It's color rush. It can look stupid because they're only going to wear it once or twice.
I think you make a good point. I think having a regular uniform like the Bucs, the Packers is ugly.
The Packers one that had like the big like dot, like the big blue like circle in the middle of their jersey.
Again, one that like might work as a sweater and old pants combination.
Black and white. This is like black and white with the NFL Films big band
like
score.
Grain.
Yeah. Like the NFL Films grain to it, and like the band that like the marching band thing, like underneath it. No commentators, no Jonathan Vilma for sure. Like just air it like that. It'll be fantastic. We might have to throw some clips from Twitter into because our game is being broadcasted in America as opposed to Brazil, so you can actually get these clips of it.
You can actually tweet, yeah.
So we might need to put it through some filters and see if we can get some old timey stuff to it.
Okay, so football question: are you getting tired of being excited about a rookie receiver, or are you genuinely excited? Because it's like Kadarius Toney, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, like none of these guys. I mean, some people still have hope for Wan'Dale Robinson. Fair enough, but
I think that you have to look at the context of each pick. Toney, to me at least, felt like a mistake from the get-go.
Okay.
Because they drafted back. I'm like, who the hell is this dude? I didn't know him because I don't follow college ball all that closely. So I was looking at him, I'm like, okay. And then like he gets into camp and he immediately starts acting like a little punk and just like a jerk and just causing all kinds of trouble. And I'm like, okay, this dude kind of sucks. And then he didn't do anything for the team and we got rid of him.
And then he complained about the team not letting him do stuff.
I know.
Which was great. Yeah.
I mean, like he had like one good game with the team, and it was a game that he got ejected for fighting with the Cowboy player. So,
I do respect that actually. It's the rest of the games that present a problem to me.
But like Wan'Dale Robinson, he was just a guy. I'm like, okay, second round receiver. Jalen Hyatt, like I think we got him in the third round. That he was projected higher. I'm like, oh, that's good value. We got a dude, but like he's also like he's just a fast guy. Like Neighbors is the first one that feels like he's worth paying attention to out of that group. Like, oh, this dude actually has something. He's the real deal. Of course, we're gonna have to wait until he gets like someone real throwing to him.
Right. Well, you can learn a lot about a receiver when a bad quarterback throws to them, right? Like, I don't think Allen Robinson, for example, would have gotten the hype he did if it wasn't very clear that he was suffering from playing with first Christian Hackenberg and then Blake Bortles. Like I feel like you could learn a lot, but obviously he's not going to have 1,800 yards, right?
No.
Because, yeah. But,
he might still have a lot of yards because he's probably just going to get the ball fed to him over and over again, whether or not it's working.
Yeah, especially because I mean, I guess Devin Singletary is like a running back, but like it's no Saquon Barkley, right? Yeah. And they don't have any tight ends. They drafted Theo Johnson, I think. So I guess that's a guy, but 4th round. And then, like the best receiver after him is like Darius Slayton, right?
Slayton, he's just like hung on because he's like the only guy who's had any sort of chemistry with Jones over his past like several seasons. But he's really only good for like one deep catch a game, maybe. He doesn't have reliable hands.
Yeah, fair enough. I did like that he went on Twitter today to ask all the people in Brazil to stop being mad at him.
He's got a good Twitter game. Darius Slayton he's got good poster energy.
I like it. But so Malik Neighbors will probably get a lion's share of the yards. I don't know if that means a lot of yards, but certainly the lion's share of the yards. Super explosive. I guess there's some rumors that he's like a diva. Which you have experience with diva receivers, so
we have experience with diva LSU receivers
specifically, yeah,
very specifically. Like honestly,
so I guess that could derail it, but it feels like that diva reputation isn't as well established as it was for Odell.
No,
which
and he wasn't causing nearly the amount of like headache in camp that Tony was. Tony was causing a lot of problems, and so like he might be a little Odell. We'll find out. We'll find out like what he's doing. I will say every time I watch the video of him getting drafted, he does not look happy to be coming to New York. he looks like the guy who's like, he's like, oh, he's got that resigned. Like it's like the one team I didn't want to draft me just drafted me. I guess I just gotta deal with it and go up there and put a smile. He does not look thrilled.
That means he knows ball. That's a good sign.
It means he's been paying attention.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was looking forward to potentially catching balls from Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, then he heard Daniel Jones is coming back. Okay, so let's talk about quarterback for a second, which I'm sorry about that, but there was a moment it felt like a lot of Twitter seemed convinced that Drew Lock was going to start. Did you ever buy that?
No. Not unless like his injury just stayed worse, which he was on track on all again. I'm like, no, Lock's not going to get the start. He's not going to beat out Jones in camp. Like they're going to give Jones his chance. Like this is Jones's final year.
Guaranteed for like this year.
Fourth time in a row. Like final year. But like, no, I'm like, they picked up Lock. They didn't pick up anyone who could genuinely like challenge him. Lock's not going to like. Maybe Lock is on his level, but he's not like a genuine chance to surpass. Like if you throw Drew Lock or Daniel Jones out there, you're kind of just got the same guy. But like if they had like picked up like Ryan Tannehill or something, Tannehill would have had a chance to start over Jones.
Right. Something yeah. Like it's not that Tannehill is an astounding guy, but
it's not that like he's even that great right now, but like he has shown the ability to be better than Jones. Drew Lock has not. Like Jones was going to start.
So what is kind of the ideal? What's kind of the ideal situation here? Like if Daniel Jones is good, that's a problem, right? Like that might convince them to stay with him for a year longer, or it hurts your draft pick too much or something like that. But if he sucks, it sucks to watch.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, the vibes in the fan base are real bad. Like nobody's excited. We're all just like, we just got another year of this crap. We just got to get through another year of this crap because, yeah, it's the same situation. If he's good, which I think he will be better than last year, which is, a very easy bar to step over.
Yeah.
But it's like, he's going to be better than last year, but like I think even if like he has a decent enough season, like the 2 years ago, the one that basically got him paid, like even if he has a season like that, I think he's still gone because he hasn't done it. He like that year, that was a panic move. That was a mistake, especially in hindsight.
So you're saying that the Giants beating the Vikings in the playoffs, definite mistake. Because that's why you got the extension because of that game, obviously.
Both teams hated that. Yeah,
both teams were not pleased.
that was the
Vikings hated
lose.
The Vikings hated it slightly less because we knew that it was going to be like messing you guys up cap wise and otherwise for at least 2 years.
But it was definitely a lose-lose.
That was a lose-lose for everyone. Everyone was kind of miserable after that game, but I did get like an hour's worth of high being able to be like, oh my God, I got to watch my team win a playoff game. I don't know when that's going to happen again.
Not for a while, it turns out, because of that playoff game.
you got the one win, and then you just get to deal with pain. It's a bit like watching the Saints year after year in the playoffs when all of their playoff losses have nicknames. Like they won the Super Bowl once, and then every other playoff game seems to have ended in some horrific fashion.
Right, like there's a pass interference game that changed the rules, and then there's an overtime game which changed the rules.
And there's the Minneapolis Miracle, the Beast Quake, the push off, all of that. Brady is Drew Brees' last game. Like every one of those losses has a nickname. So you get to.
Wasn't there one loss where what's his face like tried to lateral and he threw a forward pass? I think that was one of them too.
Oh my God!
It was like right after. I think that was like right after. No, it was pretty old. It was like really close to Beastquake. It might have been like the year after Beastquake.
That's incredible. I don't remember that. I do have another Daniel Jones question before we move on. Where does he rank in rushing yards among quarterbacks at the end of the year?
Oh, Vanilla Vic.
Yeah.
He's going to be the top half.
Oh, certainly. There's no question about that.
We're all doing presumptions that he's going to stay healthy, obviously, because
which is a tough injuries.
One. And regarding Daniel Jones is a worthy, you have to mention he's not a particularly healthy guy, but if he stays healthy, I would assume him to be in the top half, maybe even top third, top fourth. That's kind of where he was. The good year he had, they used him on the ground. He was a good scrambler. That was that's his only real skill that he brings to the table.
It's great because if you think of a Daniel Jones highlight, which is a tough thing to do, admittedly, you actually end up with a low light, which is
it's him tripping over himself.
Yeah. You're like, wait a second. That could I feel like that's such a good. Now that we know how his career is going to end, that's a really good metaphor for his career. I don't think this is because going pretty well.
Because it was actually a really good play until the very end, whereas his career has mostly been total crap.
But when it counted, it was pretty decent, and he got him a contract. And then after the contract, it was oh God, we're fumbling. Okay,
terrible mistake.
So Lamar Jackson finished with 820 yards last year. Justin Fields 650, Jalen Hurts 600, Josh Allen 500, and then Joshua Dobbs at 400. And I think Daniel Jones is probably between 400, 500 in a full season.
Yeah, he's not going to he's not going to be higher than Hurts and Jackson, obviously.
Yeah, certainly not Jackson if Jackson's healthy. And I don't think Fields over 13 games. I think Fields over 13 games is more than Jones over 17. So
looking at some of the rookies, Caleb might have more than him, depending on how that goes.
I don't know about Caleb, but maybe Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels definitely probably going to run a lot.
And then you have to worry about Kyler Murray, because the reason Joshua Dobbs is 400 is because he played 12 games, and part of that's because he played instead of Kyler Murray. So you got to worry that, and then Anthony Richardson's going to be healthy. So those are the three, I think. Yeah, Murray, Jaden Daniels, and Anthony Richardson, but one of them's going to get hurt. So Daniel Jones might not, and then he'll be ahead of them.
Or Daniel Jones gets hurt, and we get to see more of Tommy DeVito's agent on the sideline.
Unlikely, but possible.
Can we all just admit that the video that was shot with Tommy DeVito and Meals by Cuisine was the high point of vibes and of the Giants season last year? That was it. There was no better time in the season to be a Giants fan, and then it all went really quickly after.
It went to immediately. What are you talking about? It went to on the first drive of the first game. It was.
This isn't Aaron Rodgers.
Vibes
wise, the vibes were so high with the Italian thing.
No, that was basically the moment where you're having horrible diarrhea, but then you give yourself a flush and you're temporarily free of the reprieve of the smell before you have another bout. Like, that's what the Tommy DeVito section was.
Right,
It was like that tiny little moment where things were okay.
and that I think is a high point, because what you're telling me, what we're describing, is a diarrheal season that starts from snap one, and that moment of reprieve is. The thing is, the video is only okay, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's the fact that the two collaborated that was nice.
Honestly, the best part of the season might have actually been like the first time anyone showed his agent, who was even more Italian. That was just like, oh my god, this can't be real.
His agent had to like miss an event because he was being inducted into the Italian American Hall of Fame in New Jersey. Like, what?
A, the fact that that exists, and B, that it's in New Jersey, and C, that he later meets with the frickin' Pope. Like, that dude is on another level.
It is appropriate that we have a cartoonist on, as we described, the most cartoonish season in recent living memory.
Like, there's a lot of times where I'm looking at stuff. I'm like, I gotta make a comic, but I don't know if I can come up with something that's funnier than what actually happened.
Yeah.
Isn't that just what you like? Isn't that just what you do? You just narrate reality at that point?
Sometimes, yeah. Like, there was that 1 year where they had to cancel the Hall of Fame game because
I remember that.
Because like the groundskeepers used the wrong paint and it like didn't dry, so they like tried to turbo dry it and it like fused all the little rubber pieces.
Yep.
And then they were trying to use like paint thinner, which is like you can't put on your skin, so nobody could touch the field. And like I just drew all of that happening because I'm like, this is what actually happened. I can't make this funnier.
Well, at that point, it's just, and I don't remember exactly how I remember the cartoon, but I don't remember exactly how it went. At that point, you're just like you watching a TV with all of these things happening, and then you like eating like a meal in front of the TV, going, I don't know how to make this funnier. This is fantastic.
That's perfect.
Like I don't understand.
Okay, speaking of. Is there an offensive lineman aside from Andrew Thomas? Like, on the team, are there any other offensive linemen?
Yes. This is honestly one of the few things going into this year that I feel slightly better about than I normally do. We might have a semi-functional offensive line. Like
spearheaded by University of Minnesota center.
Yeah. like the biggest problem is like the biggest cheer Giants fans had last year was when we fired offensive line coach Bobby Johnson, who had been there for a while. It basically came over with Dable, and everywhere Bobby Johnson has gone, the offensive line has been bad. He is not a good offensive line coach.
Also, that guarantees he's going to be getting a job next year in the NFL.
Oh, he already has a job.
Perfect.
He's now the offensive line coach for Washington. So Jane Daniels is going to die.
A guy who throws himself into contact, now having an even worse offensive line than the Washington Commanders had last year. That's incredible.
It's very dire for them. Like, it's one of those things like, ooh, you're a rival team, but that feels dark even for you. You know?
Yeah, it's like I don't like it when you do well, but I don't want all of your quarterbacks to be Joe Theismann. I feel like that's too far.
Like, it's bad. But like, going back to the Giants offensive line this year, like they went out and they picked up John Runyon Jr.
I don't like him.
He's better than what we had. Okay. That's the point.
No, I agree with that.
He's better than what we had. Yes. We picked up Jermaine Umelamore. I can't remember. Illuminor, that was it. He's fine. We picked up the Raiders offensive line coach, who's pretty good. Neil is a bust. Obviously,
is he gonna? Do we think he's starting? Is Evan Neal gonna play?
He's gonna play, but he's an injury question mark.
Okay, he's rough.
He's rough. John Michael Smith, he spent most of last year hurt. Hopefully, he'll take a step up. He wasn't very good last year when he did play, but
rip.
It's just like it can't be much worse than it was last year because Andrew Thomas got hurt on the first drive. No, Andrew Thomas got hurt on the first drive of the game, so he was basically hurt for the rest of the year, and everyone else was crap. But we have theoretically at least kind of upgraded on the line. So I think like it could very possibly still be a bad line, but I don't know. I that's one of the few places where we can still be improved.
I mean, like this reminds me of 3 years ago when I was excited that the Vikings were going to have a below average offensive line.
Yeah.
I've been there. We've been there.
That.
But I do want to warn you, one of the themes of this podcast is that it can always get worse. So when you say it can't, that's voodoo
Look,
magic.
I have
you're
been
casting
watching
on
the
yourself.
Giants for the last decade. I do know it can get worse.
Okay, why would you say it can't get worse? Especially along the offensive line. Well known for getting worse.
Look, do I need to extol the
I guess I should
virtues?
rephrase it as it can get worse, but it's less likely to than I would normally assume.
Listen.
Okay, that's the kind of wordy precision we love on this podcast.
Yeah, but just remember, the optimism shotgun is real. You drew it into existence. It is real. I watched a number of people choose the Vikings kicker in the first round this year of the Hell League drafts, and I wanted to tap the glass on the shotgun a couple of times. Like, you don't know what juju you are messing with.
Well, I'm really excited. I want the offensive line to be better so that we can stop using it as an excuse for Daniel Jones, which he's still getting excuses for at this point. Like, well, his offensive line's really bad. Well, yeah, but he also sucks. Well, yeah, but he's got no weapons to throw to. Well, yeah, but he also sucks. Like,
what do you want me to say?
Like a lot. You watch all the bad plays last year. Like, it's not all on the offensive line. Part of it's because he sucks. So.
All right, I think that's probably it for the offense, unless you have like some particular insight into Devin Singletary or Tyrone Tracy, or they grabbed Dante Miller, who everyone thought was a draft prospect, and then the NCAA told him, because he didn't play last year, and the NCAA told him like, oh, actually you were eligible to be drafted last year, and no one knew that, so the Giants just signed him before the draft.
I think he's on our practice squad. I thought we.
He is. There it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at him.
Yeah. We cut him, and then we signed back to the practice squad.
Perfect.
Is there a player on that offense where you would look at and like confidently go, yes, I would want him starting on my fantasy team?
I mean, probably Neighbors, just because of the amount of attempts that are going to be thrown his way. He's going to get a lot of volume. Like, it's not always going to pay off.
Like it's
but
just
they're
a numbers game.
Like,
even
like the very first play of preseason was Daniel Jones trying to force him the ball. Like, it almost got picked off because Daniel Jones is terrible, but like, they're going to throw the ball at him. They're going to use him. He's going to get volume numbers. Like, even if he has like mid stats, he's going to get volume numbers.
Right. Like, he might, because of his quarterback, he might have a catch rate of like 50%. And because of that, he's going to have like,
he's got the capabilities to like
he'll have 120 targets.
Yeah. He'll have so many targets. He's going to take one or two to the house. Just sheer like average is just going to work out. Like, it's going to happen as long as he stays healthy. He'll get so many passes thrown his way. He's going to break one or two. Probably. Like, I don't know if I'd want him as like my number one option on a fantasy team, but like, yeah, he'd probably be able to fill out some spaces at the bottom.
So he's going to do the whole like Cutler, Brandon Marshall thing where he's just going to catch a whole crap load of catches. They're not going to like amount to much, but he is going to get a lot of potential targets.
Yeah, he's going to reliably get you like a decent little baseline of points every week with the potential of having like a really good week out of the blue every once in a while.
If you need 11
That's
points,
right.
he will get you 11 points. If you need 18, he is going to get you 11 points.
Okay, I like that. Well, it's hard to get like 1,000 yards out of your wide receiver 3, so that makes sense as a guy you'd want on your fantasy team. Defensively, this team looks all right. I don't know. Am I wrong about that?
I don't. It's hard to tell because we lost Wink in what I still don't understand. Some weird drama happened back scenes that we do not know about. Wink's gone, but on defense, theoretically, we should be okay.
Right, because they grab Brian Burns. They've got
so
Kayvon
Burns and
Thibodeau.
Kayvon. Like, Burns is like, Kayvon was not living up to billing as like the top pass rusher, but as a secondary pass rusher, when the offensive line is now going to have to focus on Burns and then have Dexter in the middle, like, our defensive line should, on paper, be good.
Dexter is legit great. He's phenomenal. So yeah, Burns, Dexter, Kayvon, insert a fourth offensive lineman or defensive lineman. That's like something. And then I never know how to pronounce this guy's name. Bobby Okereke, I think is how the broadcast is.
Bobby Okereke.
Okereke.
He's good. He's a great linebacker.
He's good. Micah McFadden feels like a scrappy, everybody loves him kind of guy.
Yeah, our problem is our secondary. We lost McKinney, and we only have one cornerback, Deontay Banks, that's worth anything.
Is he? So I super loved him coming out of the draft. How do you feel his rookie season went?
I thought it was pretty good. Like, considering how terrible everything was last year, I thought Banks was fine.
And they grabbed another University of Minnesota guy at safety, Tyler Nubin.
Yeah, I'm excited about him too. Like, I don't know if he's gonna like replace McKinney, especially as a rookie, but like he was the highest ranked safety on the board. Yeah. So
yeah,
I'm happy we got him.
Xavier McKinney's a super tough loss. I think he was a super underrated player.
Yeah, I was honestly more bummed about losing him than losing Saquon because I guess I kind of knew Barkley was going to leave.
Sense. Yeah,
but I was bummed we lost McKinney.
But yeah, like I think one of the safeties is Jason Pinnock, who is always played well when he's on the field, but he's almost always been a backup, I think. So I don't know. It feels like Tyler Nubin's probably just going to play. Yeah, Adoree Jackson, right? Like is the other...
Yeah, we brought him back because we have nobody at CB2, so
sure.
Got to have something.
I'm always surprised when NFL players actually like my tweets because it feels like I'm always antagonistic towards them, and so they just don't.
It feels weird when they like your tweets. How do you think it feels when they like one of my tweets?
Normal. I mean, you're like
I draw some weird stuff.
Your stuff gets jacked by NFL players all the time. It's like I feel like it happens a lot, but like I just had a tweet about how I didn't like that we learned about the Anthony Edwards, Justin Jefferson redoing the photo shoot with Kevin Garnett and Randy Moss. I would rather they had just dropped it out of the blue and surprised us. And this tweet has like 50,000 likes, which I know for you, probably not a ton, but for me it was kind of crazy.
No, that's a lot. That's a lot, especially for something that
it's so benign.
Yeah, like it's really weird. Like sometimes you'll make a tweet like, I'm just a bunch of little thought off the top of my head, and that one starts doing numbers, and you're like, why? That's not even like a good tweet.
Yeah, that's exactly what I feel about this tweet. Like, there's some tweets that go viral, and I'm like, yeah, I earned that. That tweet is funny as hell. And other tweets where it's like, I didn't even want to press send on this. It was so boring. And it's got 50,000. And Adoree Jackson liked the tweet. I'm like, what do you care about Sports Illustrated photo shoots about Minnesota rookie legends? That's so weird.
Well, like the one time I had a player like my tweet that actually kind of scared me was I made a comic about JJ Watt retiring where he can't handle it. And like he like blue screens of death on as like the punchline because he doesn't understand.
Oh, right. He doesn't know what to do without football. Yeah.
And within like 2 minutes, I didn't even tag him. Within like 2 minutes, he had responded to that tweet with a funny GIF. I was like, is he name searching himself? How did he find this tweet so fast?
Does he not follow you? Do you know if he follows you?
No, he did not follow me. I had never interacted with him before. I didn't tag him. He just appeared right underneath it. I was like, what the hell?
That sounds like a name searcher.
Yeah.
He does not strike me as the kind of guy who would set up a tweet deck column that has a search or set up Twitter so that it has like a search.
To be fair, he was retired. He might just be super bored.
I think that's what actually happened. Is I think he's just searching.
He was just
his
sitting
name
on the couch,
generally.
just like searching his own name because he doesn't know what to do with himself. And here comes a
comic
that's
about
literally making fun of him,
staring down the rabbit hole there.
That's amazing. But yeah, that's the Giants defense. I don't know. I kind of like it. Mind you, I don't think they're a top 10 defense or anything like that. But I think to me, they're definitely not bottom 5. There's no chance without injury.
I think they could be league average.
Yeah, and I think given where the Giants are as an organization, that's a pretty good place to be, I think, the defense being league average.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else like you said you were excited about Tyler Nubin? Are you excited about like Drew Phillips, the corner? There's not a ton of like defensive additions that we haven't already talked about, but like, is that a thing?
No, like I'm curious to see how the new scheme works under the new coordinator, Shane Bowen.
Yeah, what have you heard about the defense coordinator?
I mean, he seems like a dude.
Yeah, we love dudes.
I haven't gotten much. I did see a picture of him, and apparently he's like 38, which he looks like he's 57. I'm like, I am aging well compared to this, but I feel slightly better about myself boost. Now. This is like, wow, you're 2 years older than me, and you look like that? Woof.
That's what's coming for you. That's what's coming for you.
Yeah, actually, when you're 37 and a half, it's just you hit a wall. You're done. So I'm looking at this. The Giants traded for Isaiah Simmons at the beginning of the season last year, right?
Yeah.
How's that gone?
Yeah.
Cool.
He was there. He had a really good game against the Commanders where he did like a whole bunch of stuff, but like overall he's just kind of like it's nice to have like a fast linebacker, but he's not like he's not worth mentioning really. Okay,
I just saw that in April he re-signed to a 1-year $2 million deal. That tells me everything I need to know. I would love to sign a 1-year $2 million deal, but in context that's like
yes.
All right. You have the Scottish punter, right?
Yeah.
How do we feel about that?
Scottish Hammer? Yeah, we like him. We like our kickers. We like Graham Gano, who was also like hurt all last year, which was another problem. But like Graham Gano, like him. We like Jamie Gillen, the Scottish Hammer. We like our kickers.
I feel like if kickers were more commonly a part of the conversation for like anything, but that includes the Hall of Fame. Graham Gano, if there were enough kickers to enter the Hall of Fame, Graham Gano would be a borderline Hall of Famer. Now, as it is, he's not, right? Because no one cares about kickers. But I feel like in a normal situation, if he played at this level at like safety, he'd be like a borderline Hall of Fame guy.
Probably. Yeah.
Oh my God, he kicked 65% last year? Jesus, he must have been super hurt.
Oh, yeah, it was another thing. Like the first drive against the Cowboys in the rain, like the Giants drove all the way down the field, looked great, and then they had the false start where Andrew Thomas pulled his hamstring, and then when they tried to kick the field goal, that was when Gano got run into, and he hurt himself, and it was just everything fell apart from that moment.
God.
Like it was
the
like
same
the end
drive?
of that drive. Yeah, it was the same drive. It was literally they drove the field against the Cowboys defense, looked great, got all the way down to like the 5-yard line, then had the false start where Thomas gets hurt, and then Gano gets hurt on the kick that gets blocked, and everything just completely fell off a cliff at that moment.
So when you say the false start where did he get hurt false starting? Or did someone else false start?
I can't tell. He might have actually gotten hurt on the kick, but I know he got hurt right at the end of that drive. The same time, around the same, like either a play before
I'm looking
or
at the play-by-play, and he false started. And then right after that, John Michael Schmidt's aborted snap recovered by Daniel Jones. And then Graham Gano gets run into. It's a blocked field goal for returned by Wanye Thomas for a touchdown. Good God.
Yeah, it was that the false start was basically the start of everything going downhill.
That's the only time I'm ever going to hear that sentence. That's crazy. Oh, and it's one of the Deron Bland pick 6 games.
That was like I think that was like the next drive or something. Like Saquon, like Jones threw the ball to Saquon. Saquon couldn't hold on when he got hit. It just popped right out into Bland's hands, and he just ran it in.
Amazing. The issue clearly is that you had the Cowboys early in the season, and the Cowboys are supposed to generate hype early in the season. That's the problem.
Yeah,
it's a scheduling error. You would have had Graham Gano all season if you didn't start against the Cowboys. Maybe
we'll see. Like, we're not starting against the Cowboys in week 1 for the first time.
Famously, yeah.
It's happened like twice in the past 10 years. We're having a game that's not in prime time, and it's not against the Cowboys.
All right, so you got a noon game against the Minnesota Vikings, who nobody ever knows what to think.
Especially this year.
Right.
I expect any interest immediately fell off a cliff the instant JJ got hurt.
Well, he wasn't going to start week 1.
He wasn't, but like there was also there was always that like, well, maybe Darnold will be really, really bad and they'll put JJ in. We could see JJ. You never know. But now it's like, no, you're stuck with Darnold.
So you're playing against Sam Darnold. So I have defended the Sam Darnold signing. I think he's fine. But you see this Vikings team, you're like, hey, Justin Jefferson, I've heard he's kind of good. Kevin O'Connell seems to be a pretty good coach. The defense, no idea what to think of that, but the players look pretty bad. What do you think? Giants against the Vikings, your opinions, thoughts, discuss.
I mean, I guess it's going to come down to which of our pathetic quarterback situations holds up better. Because, like, I think your defense is going to give our offense fits. I think Brian Flores is going to, like, mess up. He's going to send all kinds of weird stuff at our line where they're not going to look good. And obviously Daniel Jones is a pile of trash. Mm-hmm. But our defense is fine. But, like, we also don't have a cornerback. We don't have a good secondary, and you guys got JJ. So it's really which one of our quarterbacks doesn't the bed.
That's going to be real tough. The Vikings cornerback situation. I mean, hey, 2019, that room looks great. Byron Murphy is like not a Pro Bowler, but he's like a strong cornerback. Stephon Gilmore's Defensive Player of the Year. 2019, that room looks great. I don't know. The 2024 version of that group is curious. So yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I don't know if they'll be able to cover Malik Neighbors, but I think the Brian Flores philosophy has always been that you don't really bother covering receivers. Like, that's not an important element to the game.
I mean, that didn't work when Donatell did it.
Well, yeah, but he also didn't have a different
do the rest
plan.
Of it either.
Right. Yeah. It's like the critical element is that Brian Flores had a different approach, and Donatell was just like, well, you just don't cover people, obviously. I don't know what the Vegas odds are. I'm going to guess Giants -3. I don't know.
Giants are at home. Giants are probably favored. I would give a slight edge to the Vikings. Just
I'm online. I can Google this. Let's find it.
Arif, who pretends he doesn't spend any time or money gambling for reasons that make no sense. Yeah,
it's hard.
Gambling is not allowed in the state of Minnesota. Okay, James? It's not legal for me to gamble. Pick'ems, however.
Hilariously legal, yes.
For some reason. Because that's fantasy. So that's a game of skill. Okay, Giants are favored by 1, not 3. Fair enough. This basically is just a pick'em game.
That's just the okay. Let's give the slightest of edges to the home team. It's like, oh, we don't think either of these teams really are worthy of being called the winner. So let's just give a little edge to the home team.
Actually, what's kind of funny is that the Giants opened as favorites, but the line has moved to the Vikings, in fact, being 1-point favorites. So, cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So no one has any idea who's going to win this game. I feel like both teams are just completely up in the air.
Yeah. I don't know what to expect from, honestly, either of us this season.
So in the spirit of this being a podcast of pessimists,
mm-hmm.
You think that the Vikings are probably going to win because you give the slight edge to the Vikings?
I give them just a slight edge. I don't know. I think your offense is a little bit more competent than ours. And our defense probably around the same level. Different strengths, different weaknesses, but probably about as equal. But like, I think your offense is more competently run.
Podcast of pessimist, but I can't really disagree. I think that's fine. I think your analysis is fair. I'm also picking the Vikings by, I don't know, 2 points. Who cares?
It'll be 8-10.
Game of the year.
Last minute field goal from Reichert. I like it.
No, the 8 points will just be 4 safeties.
4 safeties.
Brian Burns will sack Sam Darnold in the end zone 4 times, and that'll be the only points the Giants get.
After the third one, we demand that he start taking snaps in shotgun, and that's when he gets the 4th.
No, the fourth one will just be they forget to block Dexter Lawrence, and Lawrence just comes right up in the middle.
That's very in line with. I mean, the Vikings' interior offensive line is certainly they get paid. I guess I can say that much.
Questionable at best. Well, Dave, thanks so much. What do you have to plug for yourself? Obviously, the draw play and all of your Arif harassment tweets.
Well, honestly, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably already know who I am. But yes, thedrawplay.com. I'm doing picks once again this season. Every Sunday, I'll be sitting in front of the TV and just drawing pictures for every game I pick wrong. I'll probably continue to draw Arif's anime characters probably about once a week when I remember. And
unnecessary.
No, absolutely necessary.
Very necessary.
No one's life improves by me watching anime. I don't see why we're doing this.
I think he respectfully disagrees.
I think a lot of people's lives would improve if you watched anime, including your own.
Not the case.
How would you know? You don't know until you try.
It's ontologically evil. I don't really have to investigate this.
So back to the plug, if we can, for a moment. At DrawPlayDave out on Twitter.
At DrawPlayDave at Twitter. At DrawPlayDave on Blue Sky, which hopefully becomes more of a thing over the course of the season.
Yeah, please, God.
Oh, God. I really wish sports Twitter would kind of migrate off of Twitter.
They just aren't doing it, man. There's no one on Blue Sky.
All the Brazilians are there now.
That's true.
What was there was a comment from Mark Cuban about Threads the other day that said something along the lines of Threads is getting better. And like, that's not a ringing endorsement.
Threads
that's not
is
a ringing
rotten.
endorsement.
Threads is rotten.
I think Dusty said the same thing, and I had the same reaction. It's like, yeah.
It started out bad, and it was like everybody who was popular on Instagram was popular on Threads for like fairly obvious reasons. But like posting on Instagram is way different than posting on a micro text platform like Twitter. And so all of their posts sucked.
Oh, they were all terrible.
And it was all just like corporate whatever, like influencer stuff. No one was posting in the spirit of posting. And then the most popular posts were posts stolen from Twitter.
Yeah.
The place sucks.
Yeah, Threads doesn't have the juice. It's there, and apparently, like they've done the Instagram algorithm where it just feeds you what it thinks you want to see, what it's trying to feed you, instead of what you actually want to follow. Like, I just want to look at the people I follow. Like, no, we're gonna shove popular posts from like bait into your face so that you get mad and engage. Like, so Threads is terrible. I'm still holding out hope for Blue Sky. It's the only place that has decent enough vibes. It just doesn't have the infrastructure.
So yeah, that was the plug somehow.
One day. Well, thanks, Dave, so much for coming on and helping take Arif down a peg or two. This is important, and sometimes we do this in the middle of the season, but this year it seemed appropriate to do it right away just to get it, just to knock it out as quick as we could. So, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks you for having me. I look forward to us both being miserable on Sunday.
Hell yeah.
That is accurate. All right, let's go to the mailbag. And the first question is from Yannick, who asks, if the Vikings played a game in a country that outlawed Twitter, which Vikings media personality would most likely get arrested for using it?
Okay, so let me be clear about what happened when Brazil outlawed Twitter. It did not make it illegal for a person to log into Twitter from Brazil. You don't get arrested for logging into Twitter. I have Brazilian followers who have let me know discreetly that they're still on Twitter. Not actually an issue. What Brazil has done is that they have prevented any dynamic name servers in the country of Brazil from caching Twitter. So you can't access Twitter through any servers in Brazil. Okay, great. So no one is getting arrested for that. Now, evidently, people employed by Twitter are getting arrested. I don't know. It's the information we're getting about this is from Twitter, so take it with a grain of salt. Incidentally, I haven't announced this yet, but I'm free to announce it. I do have an affiliate with Ground News. So you want to talk about like bias in reporting? That's like the whole deal with Ground News. I think coupon code wide left for both Ground News and Stathead. Anyway, we've just turned this into a plug for my stuff. But the media member that would most likely get arrested for using it is probably Arif Hassan. He is addicted to being online.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That guy's got some issues.
Yeah.
Also from Yannick, what is Arif's favorite Chris Boyd penalty on special teams? We'll discuss the Mike Zimmer thing in a moment, but what is Arif's favorite Chris Boyd penalty on special teams?
Apropos for the episode, an illegal formation penalty.
Wow.
He lined up for this was the game that he had 2 consecutive special teams penalties. I believe he had a third penalty also in the game, but it was declined. In this game, he was a gunner on a punt. I think Dustin Colquitt was the punter. He was a gunner on a punt, and he was just completely uncovered. Like, there was just no jammer, and like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? And I don't know, he got like too excited or something. But he started like moving around at the line of scrimmage. And then the ball was snapped and he was still moving, which means he wasn't set, right? You can just sit still for like a second, right? So Colquitt throws the ball. Chris Boyd, uncovered, catches it, converts it. I think it's like a 23-yarder. Converts it. The Vikings drive continues, except it doesn't. Illegal formation. Good job, my guy. And I believe the very next special teams play, he committed another penalty. I'm trying to remember what that one was. But, you know, good work. Illegal block in the back on a return. Yeah. Good work, my guy. Incredible stuff. Probably don't throw your name in the hat on any future criticisms that you have for people who cut you, is my advice.
Yeah, on that one, you might want to be quiet on that one. Zach Dixon asks, with the goal being maximizing impact, if you could pick 3 players from the 53-man roster to take the, quote, next step this year, who would they be?
Okay, so I think the most obvious, so I'll do 4 because there's one very obvious answer. It's Sam Darnold. He has played reasonably well over his past 250 snaps. That is very clearly a small sample. And we don't know if he's taken, quote unquote, the next step to actually actualize the quarterback that the statistics suggest that he could possibly be outside of New York. So he takes the next step. That's going to have a huge impact on the Vikings. Mind you, they're not going to re-sign him almost no matter what happens after the season. But in terms of just, this season, that would be the biggest. But that one's too obvious. So because of that, I want to name 4. On offense, I think that there's 2 pretty clear answers. Ed Ingram and Jordan Addison. I don't really have to go into a ton of detail. Obviously, I'm going to pick a receiver. I've mentioned a billion times on the show that receiver is like the second most important position on the team, on a team, on any NFL team. Statistically speaking, there is some evidence to suggest, based off of receiver performance and snap count, that the quality of your second receiver and sometimes third receiver impacts outcomes more than the quality of your top receiver. I think, so this is a piece Eric Eager wrote for PFF a couple years ago. I think the way it was done wasn't great methodologically because it suggested, I think there was a selection bias problem, because if you select for the best third receiver grade, the player with the best grade among third receivers among all teams, the top receiver is also going to have the top grade, like a really good grade, because you're just raising the floor. But there's some evidence to suggest that a diversity of targets is actually even more important than having a high level receiver. Now, do I believe that for the Vikings? No, I think Justin Jefferson is the most important player, but having Jordan Addison take that next step would be really fantastic. Plus, he's going to have to learn to take steps because I don't know that he's going to be able to drive. Ed Ingram.
I hate the fact I knew that pun was coming and there was nothing I could do.
It was, one could say, driving down the highway, 140 miles per hour, couldn't stop it,
Well, there was a pet thing involved, so yeah.
Right. I mean, you have to, right? Ed Ingram, that one is pretty self-evident. The Vikings have a very suspect interior offensive line from a pass protection standpoint. We have no idea if Blake Brandel is going to be any good. Ed Ingram seems like he's pretty close to being average. I don't know. It feels like he went from catastrophically bad to below average, and that's just kind of where we're hanging out. And if you could take the next step to be above average, I think that would actually mean a lot for the offensive line, especially given that the Vikings opponents just tend to have strong interiors and especially strong nose tackles, and Garrett Bradbury is like no good at that. So having some help would be good. On defense, I'm going to exclude the rookies, obviously. And I want to avoid linebackers because they are just not that important. But I just don't know that there's anyone on the defensive line that is in position to quote unquote take the next step, right? Like I think we're past the mark for Pat Jones. Again, I'm excluding rookies. Jonathan Grenard and Van Ginkel, I think we're past that. I mean, it'd be nice if Grenard unlocked like another level of his play, but I think he doesn't qualify for that. So I am going to pick a linebacker this time against my like position value type judgment, and it's Ivan Pace. I think he's an extremely good pass rusher. He is a decent-ish run stopper, and he's pretty bad in coverage, which you don't expect for a player with his like size speed profile. But if he can kind of figure things out, become even just a below average coverage player, he'll be immensely valuable. So that'd be nice. And then in the secondary, I think you just kind of have to go with a Caleb Evans. There's no one else, like maybe Joshua Metellus. That'd be kind of cool, actually. But there's no one else like in a position to take the next step. Maybe Cameron Bynum could become, instead of like a pretty good safety, everyone just kind of agrees is like pretty good, becomes a great safety, maybe. But I think a Caleb Evans is in a spot where he could, quote unquote, take the next step. And if he does, I think that you've got a successor to Stephon Gilmore, or if Gilmore doesn't play as well as you'd kind of hoped, you can play a Caleb Evans in his stead. Or if Shaq Griffin, actually, no, keep Gilmore out there. If Shaq Griffin is as good as he's been for the past 3 years and a Caleb Evans takes the next step, then Evans should be starting. So that's probably the last player I'm going to pick for this.
Zach Dixon also asks, is there any way to like functionally convert cap space to draft picks? If there were a way, would this be a good team building strategy for the Vikings right now?
Right now, no, because the Vikings don't have cap space. They got like $1 million. I suppose like next year's cap space you could do something with. I think it's a generally good strategy. Teams have avoided doing this, but we famously did have an instance where the Browns did do it. They sent a 2017 fourth round pick to the Houston Texans and received a 2018 second round pick, a 2017 sixth round pick, and Brock Osweiler. Now, if you just put that in your little trade value calculator, they came away with an insane steal, right? They turned a fourth rounder to a second and a sixth, like a next year second. So I guess you deprecate that by around a third. So a third rounder and a sixth rounder and a backup quarterback, that's immense. But they took on all of Brock Osweiler's cap that he had signed with the Houston Texans. And it was dragging the Texans down. They couldn't live with it, and so they needed to trade him away. But no team wanted him because of that cap number. So the Browns were like, "Well, yeah, we'll do it, but it's going to cost you." And so they got a second round pick out of it. So it can happen. It's pretty rare.
It's a basketball trade. And it's something that's
well, it happens way more in basketball.
Yeah, it's seen in basketball all the time, that you're taking on this cap in order to make it work for you for the future. But yeah, it's absolutely something that happens in basketball, but it's rarely seen. And that's why it was so weird when the Browns did it, because, they're doing a basketball thing here. This is unique. And it was good. Like, I don't think it, like, worked out, like, in terms of the pick or whatever, but I think it's a good practice. I think it's a good process. Yeah.
So if the Vikings could do it, maybe next year, but they can't do it this year. I think they're number 32 in cap space, something like that, entering the season. So they can't do that.
Yeah. Jack Rackham asks, a lot was made of the trade up for Dallas Turner. Given the original trade up for pick 23 was likely ammo for a QB trade up that never materialized, and given that the trade happened several weeks before the draft, shouldn't the trade to 23 be considered sunk cost as it relates to acquiring Turner? criticize the trade to 23 or criticize the move up to draft Turner, but it feels weird to call that one big package deal for that one big package deal for Turner. Am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think that people who evaluated that the way that you're describing are necessarily all that wrong either. I think it's just kind of a matter of perspective and how you bank things and stuff like that. No, I'm sympathetic to that view. The trade up from 23 to what was it, 17, I think, mathematically by itself was not good. It wasn't catastrophic, but the trade up to 23 mathematically by itself was not good. And the combined trade up to 17 from the second round was catastrophic, right? And these are like different elements at play. The thing is, the Vikings were in a spot where they thought they could get the top defender in the draft, which was not necessarily the consensus opinion, but I'm trying to have opinions that are not just based on the consensus board. But given that there were like all of these defenders falling past like pick 11 or whatever, was it? Pick 11, I think, was Latu for the Colts. Maybe it was 13, something along those lines. The Vikings might not have been able to get a high-level pass rusher the way that was falling, but if they had stood pat, they'd been able to draft like Terrion Arnold, who went to the Lions. Or if it had gone a little bit differently, and Dallas Turner had fallen just a little bit more, maybe that changes the picks ahead, they would have been within striking distance to, or maybe even would have been even able to have Quinyon Mitchell fall to them. Instead, he goes to the Eagles. I think that they could have gotten a top 15 talent without trading up. And so I think from a non-board math perspective or a non-trade value perspective, it still doesn't make a ton of sense because the Vikings, it's good that they've got Dallas Turner. I'm never going to say it's bad that they have him, but, well, unless he is bad, but that's kind of a different conversation. But like the Vikings are decent-ish at pass rusher. Not great, and Dallas Turner is definitely somebody that's going to be really immense in terms of helping out that pass rush. But they are like catastrophically bad at cornerback, and they couldn't have anticipated, what would happen to their fourth round pick. But that's an area where you wanted to make multiple picks, and they couldn't because they just didn't have the draft capital to do it. Now, are they going to end up maybe lucky with Dwight McLaughlin? I don't know, maybe, but I think that that's asking a lot. The cornerback situation is pretty dire. They don't have a long-term solution. I don't think Shaq Griffin or Stephon Gilmore are long-term solutions. So I think that from a practical, or not a practical, from a contextual standpoint, also not a great move. That said, Dallas Turner looks really good. I'm really excited about him. I think I'm really sympathetic to this view that trading up to 17 from the second round is not really the correct way to view it. Within that context, then you need to criticize the trade up to 23. The Vikings did it without having a deal in place, and so it was a little bit premature. But yeah, no, that's a different way to look at it. I don't like if you want to figure out if you should be mad at the Vikings, I don't think your answer changes. It's just how you explain why you're mad changes, right? Like they still made the two trades up and they were both bad. Like, okay.
Next question is from Hunter, who asks, Alec Lewis just had a great sit-down interview with Harrison Smith reviewing some of his best plays. If Arif could do a hater's version of this, what current or former player would be the funniest?
Chad Greenway. Not even close. Like, Carson Wentz would be very funny.
Do you think enough time has passed where you might have a longer time trying to explain why it's funny?
You might be right. This is such an early meme bit. I don't know. It's such an early bit relative to like where my career is now. That maybe Carson Wentz is just the correct answer here. It's got to be like an awkward room though, because I've explained that he apparently knows who I am, right?
Carson Wentz? Yes.
Yeah.
That has come up a few times.
Yeah.
I don't know why he doesn't like me.
It's just like, come on, man. You're starting quarterback. Relax. But yeah, Carson Wentz would be funny. Trey Lance, obviously, at the moment would be hilarious. It's like, okay, so for pick number 4, what was going through your mind?
When the ball soared out of your hand in a way that you could not possibly have intended it to do so. What was going through your mind?
When you showed up to Gophers camp and they wanted you to play defensive back, how do you feel about that now, knowing what you know?
Knowing that few people have ever thrown as many picks in a preseason game as you have. Please use as many words as possible. I'm trying to make this article long. R. Menson asks, what would constitute a successful season for the Vikings this year beyond just a certain number of wins? What do they need to show over the course of the season to prove they are on an upwards trajectory?
I think a couple of things. One, I think that the defense has to demonstrate that it can do it again, right? They don't have to be a top 5 defense or anything like that. But I think given that there is still a talent deficit on defense, and it's a much more talented team this year than last year, but there's still a talent deficit on defense, their capacity to produce good play is still, I think, in question. And last year, they ran a crazy scheme that from weeks 4 to week 13 did extremely well, and after it was figured out, collapsed. It just couldn't hold up for like the next 5 weeks, which is pretty catastrophically bad in my opinion. And that would suggest to me it was a Band-Aid defense. It was a patchwork defense. It was you came up with something in the moment to hide the serious deficiencies on defense. You can't get away with that again. So you have to come up with something new this year. And I don't think the best way to run a defense is to constantly find new gimmicks to make it work. It's to find something that at a fundamental level by itself works that you make tweaks on. So I'm not saying, don't blitz a ton, but I am saying develop a system that, when people quote unquote find out what it is, they can't easily exploit it, right? Like the Seahawks with the cover 3 stuff, people figured that out. It was one of the simplest coverage units that we've seen in the NFL. People figured out what that was and what the whole deal was pretty quickly. They couldn't do anything about it. It was fundamentally a sound approach. So that is I think going to be a marker of success. I think other things would be kind of progress among these tertiary receivers, making sure that we see, production from Jordan Addison, an expanded route tree, making sure that we see production from Jalen Naylor. All of those are going to matter too. But I don't know, like the Vikings offense has had to adapt itself to a number of different quarterbacks. It will have to do so again. And we'll see if it can continue to find ways to make sure that Justin Jefferson, I guess, keeps getting 100 yards a game. I don't know, man. This guy's addicted to success. I guess it doesn't matter what offense he's in, but still, like, finding ways.
Deez asks, for Arif's employment corner, we're getting to the Zimmer stuff now. If/when Zimmer gets fired from the Cowboys someday, will he stop by HR on the way out this time, or will he commit to the bit?
Okay, so for those unfamiliar with this reference, which is an interesting place for you to be in, that you're listening to a 2-hour podcast, but you didn't hear about the Mike Zimmer news. Mike Zimmer sat down with Mark Craig, one of his favorite writers in the Minnesota Beat. They both hate young people, I think, is the thing that unites them. Sat down and just complained for a while, and Mark Craig transcribed it and then put it into the Star Tribune. Great. And Zimmer, as we all know, is not really one to hold back. It is the reason it took forever for him to get a job as a head coach. And it's one of the things that was the most entertaining thing about him, while he was admittedly a very effective head coach. So he threw Chris Boyd, he was like, well, who's talking bad about me? Chris Boyd? That guy had more special teams penalties than I can ever remember, which that quote looks like a fake quote, right? It looks like the kind of quote that Ballsack Sports would come up with and transmit around on a fake graphic, right? Like, I cannot believe that's a real quote. That's crazy. But yeah, in this story, he doesn't talk to HR. He finds out he's fired. So he just gets in his truck and leaves. Doesn't even talk to the team. He's like, why would I want to talk to the team? They're the ones that got me fired, which is a crazy thing for an NFL coach to believe. Now, mind you, it is kind of in the moment. It's kind of, you're kind of heated. You're kind of mad about that. But I can't give him too much grace on that, because literally every other head coach who has been fired has done this. Like, so clearly the standard has been set that like you can kind of take it professionally and figure it out. I guess he was like pretty hurt by Terrence Newman. And this is the thing that like actually does bother me, like more than almost anything else that occurred in the article, was that Terrence Newman, when he spoke about it, I believe it was to Tyler Dunn at Go Long, when he spoke about playing under and then coaching with for very briefly with Mike Zimmer and how that team kind of collapsed, he talked about the thing that Eric Hendricks talked about, the culture of fear stuff, and how it was a toxic environment at the end. And Zimmer called him and he was like, well, what did you mean by that? And he's like, well, I meant what I said, coach. It's what it was like. And instead of Zimmer taking this as like criticism to like learn from, one of the most beloved players that he's ever had that followed him across multiple organizations, that stuck with him until he was 38. Can we talk about that for a second? 38? He was so old that he was talking about aging like fine wine to Mike Zimmer, right? Like, Jesus. So this is like a long established relationship. And Newman was like, I'm just telling you what I thought was true. And I'm not going to take that back, which credit to him, right? Someone as intimidating as Zimmer calls you up and it's like, man, I can't believe you said that hurtful thing about me. And to have the stones to just be like, yeah, it hurts, but it's true. Like, that's just what happened. I'm not going to tell them anything different than I'm going to tell you, right? Like, I think that's great. Zimmer can't take that. And so he's like, oh, I guess we're never talking again. That bothers me a lot. The pot shot at Chris Boyd was weird because I don't actually think Chris Boyd actually said anything. I didn't take a long time to look it up. So I looked in the Tyler Dunn piece to see if Chris Boyd had said anything. I couldn't find it. And I was like, that's enough searching about Chris Boyd. I don't really care. But I don't recall Chris Boyd saying anything. So I don't know why he latched onto him. If Boyd didn't say anything, that is a wild thing to do, to just identify a random player and be like, well, yeah, well, that guy sucks. And it's like, well, I don't know, you picked him, man. Like, what are you supposed to do? But yeah, he kept on talking about like all the mistakes that other players made. And I don't really like, maybe it's because it's a newspaper column, so there's only a certain number of inches. There's not much detail you can get into some important questions. But like, I don't know why he forgave Eric Hendricks, but not Terrence Newman. There might be a deeper story there, right? Did Eric Hendricks take it back? In which case, I kind of have some issues with that, I guess. Like, be honest about what you thought at the time. What changed your mind, at least, if that's no longer the case? I mean, obviously, your mind did change. You went to go play for him. Linval Joseph, you went to go play for him. Dalvin Cook, you went to hang out in the same building as him. Like, what changed, right? So I'm like really curious about all these things, but like I think Mike Zimmer, he comes off as somebody who wants people to think that he doesn't care what people think about him. It seems like it is an affect that he holds, that he doesn't care what you think about him. But throughout the piece, it's very clear that it is deeply important how people think about him. It's the reason he came back to coaching. I didn't want them to think I was a bad coach. That's the reason he gave for returning to the Dallas Cowboys as defensive coordinator. And he is very sensitive to this kind of stuff. And I don't mean sensitive as an insult. I think people being sensitive is fine, whatever, right? But he is. I don't think anybody would have thought he was a bad coach. The few people that would think that, you'd taken the course of his entire career, this guy that if we were more open to offensive and defensive coordinators making the Hall of Fame, would be a lock for the Hall of Fame. Along the lines of like a Norv Turner as an offensive coordinator, or Sid Gilman or something like that, is concerned, right? And this happened a lot throughout his tenure as a head coach, where he would see a media story, talk about how he doesn't read the media, and then complain about how they mischaracterize him, like with the stuffed animal massacre, right? Like, own it, dude. Like, stop making it about people being out to get you. But the fact that you think people are out to get you means you care, about what they're saying and what they think. He obviously cares deeply about what the players think, and I think that that's fine. I don't think that he ever put up a front in that regard. Occasionally he seems to. He's like, well, I don't care what Michael Parsons thinks. Okay, whatever. You do. Historically, you have. But like, he always attempts to communicate that I don't care what you all think. And then he acts very much in concert as if he cares. And then he also just says, I don't want people to think I'm a bad coach. So that's my takeaway. I think it's kind of hard for somebody at his age to like take a life lesson and learn from it. But like, I think you should probably evaluate the disconnect between him saying he doesn't care what people think and him saying he cares what people think. Like I think you would be a healthier person evaluating that. That's my thought. What was the question?
I did enjoy that one of the parts of the story was, I dug a hole. I dug a literal hole in the middle of my ranch.
Yeah, incredible. And he couldn't watch a Vikings game? We'll get to that question. What? I kind of get that. I sometimes have difficulty going back and reading pieces from places I've been fired from, but I don't know. At the end of the day, information's information. I want to use it if I can. Man, not like those are your dudes. Like it's not like, okay, the Vikings you might hate, fine. The Wilfs you might mega hate, sure. But like you coached a lot of those players, man. That's like, well, maybe not this year. There's not as many of those left over, but like
couldn't watch the new boyfriend move in on the old girl. Just, he's definitely the type who's got a list somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Well, Not Your Father's Dopamine asks, it's a shame Mike Zimmer hasn't watched any Vikings games since his firing. He would have loved the Raiders 3-0 game last year. What other Kevin O'Connell era games and quasi roster moves would Zimmer have loved or hated?
Oh boy. All of the like middling trades, like your Ross Blacklocks, right? Like those trades, I think he would have hated all of them. I think, I don't know, this is the quasi moves that I think he would just hate Quasi. Like, I don't know if there are any specific moves that he would like go out of his way to hate. Maybe like someone like a Brian Asamoah he wouldn't like because, I mean, he did draft Eric Kendricks, so it's not like he hates undersized linebackers, but typically he's got a preference for size at the front seven defensive positions. And Asamoah, I don't think like has the kind of juice that he's looking for. But I think mostly he just hates the general approach. I mean, Quasi does trade up a lot more than like you'd think an analytics GM would, but I think he would have hated the Lewis Cine pick, not because Lewis Cine is bad, but again, like you have to be a really good safety to be drafted really high, I think. Otherwise, that's like mid-round fodder for him. But I do think all of the close games, which if you're familiar with the Vikings over the past 3 years, is almost all of the games. For a guy who just hates Kirk Cousins deeply in his soul, mostly for reasons outside of Kirk Cousins' control, mostly because Kirk Cousins is a quarterback who got paid. Like that's the reason mostly. I think seeing Kirk Cousins thrive in ways that he never could under Mike Zimmer would really gall him, especially when Kirk Cousins starts winning close games. Another Mike Zimmer contradiction is that he would really emphasize to the point where he would force his quarterbacks to be like kind of paranoid, except for Case Keenum, because he's just that dude, about turnovers and taking chances and stuff like that. And he'd be like, you got to take care of the ball. You can't be taking chances like that. You can't be making throws like that. And then he would later also castigate quarterbacks for not taking chances enough late in games to get them back in. Now, I don't think that this is necessarily a contradiction. I think that this is actually him navigating the nuance of what you want your quarterback to do fairly well. I think you need to ramp up your risk reward or risk tolerance late in games when you're behind. Like, I think you need to modulate how you do that. And Kirk Cousins wouldn't do that. So I think it's fair, but he didn't communicate that very well. And so it felt like a contradiction. And coaching is communication. He's one of the people who said that, right? And to see Cousins figure that out under a different head coach, become a really excellent close game player, play really well late in games. the number of times we left training camp and said the offense didn't win a single 2-minute, not a single 2-minute drill. And then at least one of those seasons, they didn't win a single 2-minute drill in actual games, right? I remember the time the offense did win a 2-minute, it was like late, it was like 2021. They finally won a 2-minute drill. And I was like, I think that's the first time in 3 years the offense in training camp has won a 2-minute drill. That's crazy. They were never able to effectively close under Zimmer. And we would say that was Kirk Cousins' fault. And yeah, it is. He's the player. But the effect of coaching is such that you might be able to unlock certain elements or characteristics of your players. That's what coaching is, right? And so I think Zimmer would hate to see Kirk Cousins thrive in ways that he could never make Cousins thrive. That said, man, that Colts comeback, I don't know how anybody could hate that. That ruled.
Yeah, between that and maybe the game where Kirk gets hurt in Green Bay. Just, I for whatever reason, I think he would, he might rewind that back.
I think a lot of Florida's games he would maybe appreciate just because of how crazy the defense was.
As a side note, my confession for the off season this year is that I have watched the Manning cast clip of when Aaron Rodgers got hurt. I'm confident over 100 times now. I have watched that clip way too many times. I have enjoyed it. It's fun to watch Peyton try to figure out who the backup is for the Jets. It's just every time it just like upset he's getting onto the cart. Like, I thought that was a twisted ankle. What's he getting on the cart for? Like, just right into my veins. I have enjoyed that far too much.
I also like the idea that Peyton Manning is, first of all, just confused about anything. But this is a person who knows who the third nickel corner is, right, on an opposing defense.
Yeah, and he named like an 80s or 90s backup quarterback for the Jets.
Right.
Of Rodgers, like.
Yeah, and it's like, Peyton, Zach Wilson's been there for like a couple. You've covered a Zach Wilson game. Like, this is not information that is unavailable to.
Yeah, even Eli he was the number 1 pick like last year. Like, what are you doing, dude?
He's like, is Vinny Testaverde in the building? He's like, Peyton, come on.
Is Joe Theismann somewhere warming up in the back? Being kept away from Susie Kolber? Like,
That's Joe Namath.
Oh, that was Joe Namath. My bad. Trans-inclusive, but Harrison Butker asks, should I adopt the Mike Zimmer method of dishing out scathing criticism but refusing to take any? Will this help with my career or personal relationships? Only in Dallas, actually, as it turns out.
Or if your name is Harrison Butker. I think apropos username to ask this question. I will, for the sake of fairness, I should point out that there is a sentence in the Star Tribune article where Mike Zimmer appears to take some blame. Is it their fault? Maybe. Could I have done a lot of things better? Probably. I think it's something along the lines of that sentence. You know, it's like a non-apology apology. But in the interest of fairness, I should say he did technically open up ourselves to the possibility that he would take some blame. So, will this help you in your career or personal relationships? As the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, yes, it will.
So, just keep that in mind. VH Cadet asks, for a Reef's Revenge Corner, which of these former Vikings would roast Zimmer the hardest in a tell-all interview? A. Norv Turner, B. Stephon Diggs, C. Kirk Thunderfist Cousins, D. Rick Spielman, or E. Marcus Sherrills?
Okay, the answer is like super obvious. It's obviously Stephon Diggs. There's no other answer here. Norv Turner is like really good friends with the reason that he technically resigned, is because he's really great friends. Now, again, I do think that Zimmer did fire him, but the reason he gave is that they're really good friends. And if Turner hasn't talked now, it's not happening. Stephon Diggs still has a playing career to care about, and he's kind of already talked about it.
Yeah,
so
and Diggs has even said before, is like, I'm a professional, I'm not going to talk, but he's got some. He'll be on some podcast like a year after he retires, and that'll be when it comes out.
Yeah, and I say this absolutely unironically and without judgment, I believe Kirk Cousins and Marcus Sherrills are both too Christian to do it. And I mean that like that's just like not a thing that they would do because of their Christianity. I just don't think that they would do it. Rick Spielman, I think, is too much of the complete opposite. Too much of a snake, I think.
That's what you're going to say. Too much of a Satanist to do it. Anton LaVey says that we should let these things go.
Oh, we can't get into the various sects of Satanism. There's like conflict. But not like
that, yeah, because we've gone into baby witches before, so yeah.
Right. Okay. Again, not a theology podcast, but I'm just saying the Satanist sects have beef with each other in ways that the Christian sects don't. And I'm not saying it's worse. We literally have Christian holy wars about the kind of Christianity that you should do. That's worse. But this is different because it's about like interpersonal behavior among the members of certain branches of Satan. So it's like a whole deal. Anyway.
Not a theology podcast.
Not a theology podcast. Rick Spielman, I think, is just too concerned about maintaining all of his relationships at all times. I said snake. That's not fair. But he like, very professional reasons not to do it. Like, this is because of the kind of person he is, the kind of person who wouldn't do that. He got a cushy consultation job with the Washington Commanders to tell them who to identify as their general manager. That's who he is. He reached out to Mike Zimmer a couple of times. Mike Zimmer didn't respond. That's who both of them are. So, yeah, I don't think it's Cousins. I don't think it's Sherrills. I don't think it's Spielman. So it's either Turner or Diggs. And I think Turner actually likes Mike Zimmer quite a bit. Diggs, maybe not. So I think Diggs is the most likely to do an explosive tell-all.
The next question is from Anton, who asks, whose legs will the Vikings quarterbacks get tripped by on Sunday? Feels like a given that not just Sam will have to play.
Yeah, so obviously you got to throw out the obvious Ed Ingram there. That clearly I think is
arms,
legs,
other appendages that could trip somebody. Yeah,
yeah. Any Ed Ingram body part is liable to cause a quarterback injury for sure. I think it sucks that Daniel Jones and the Vikings quarterbacks can't be on the field this week because Daniel Jones is a prime candidate to be clumsy enough to do something, but wrong side of the ball. Man, maybe Adoree Jackson. I could see that. Not like in a he's dirty, right? Not kind of like in a Kirby Joseph kind of way, but like I could see it. I don't know how else to explain it. Like I could see like I can't see Deontay Banks doing it. I could see Adoree Jackson doing it. It's just tough. The linebackers aren't like that, so I don't see it from their linebacker group. So I think those are my two candidates: one Giant and one Viking.
You know, the only thing that's
wait, maybe Nick Muse. Actually, we could like dark horse. Yeah,
there you go. The best part about the fact that the Vikings and the Giants are playing each other is that all the clips from the Josh Freeman game are slowly but surely reappearing on Twitter. And
hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm enjoying reliving some of the funner aspects of that and not the oh my god our season is over part of that. So yeah. Beef Brewski asks, if Sam Darnold were a Magic the Gathering card, I feel like we're falling off a cliff now, what would his card type, mana, and power toughness be? Feel free to throw in some flavor text.
Okay, this is tough. Again, does my bit include not playing Magic the Gathering? I can't remember anymore.
No, you've played Magic according to the game. According to the show.
Great. Okay, so I don't have to do elaborate verbal constructions to get around why I'm explaining something. Fantastic. Not that that's what I do with the other parts. That's, everything we say about the bits are true to life and sincere. Okay. Anyway, Sam Darnold, Magic the Gathering card. So I can't. When I saw this question, I kind of teased out what I think the card would look like, but I didn't actually assign a color or anything like that. Very backwards. Not backwards, but backwards relative to the question. So I think Sam Darnold is a 2/1 summon where, and I think he costs probably 4 mana, which is a ton for a 2/1 summon. But get this. He has an ability where you tap him and you flip a coin. The coin lands heads. He gains +1/+1. The coin, maybe it should be +2/+2, maybe if it's 4 mana. If it lands tails, you take 2 damage. So +2/+2 on heads. Tails, you take 2 damage. That feels like a black card. Spiritually, that seems like it's in the spirit of black. Very often, black decks will have the player take damage. And people who actually play Magic tell me how unbalanced this card is. It sounds like it could get unbalanced pretty quickly. I bet there's another Magic card where you can identify, like you can say what the outcome of a coin flip is, and if you just pair these 2 cards together, it's goated and it should be illegal. I don't know. There's like millions of Magic cards out there, right? But absent the existence of that card, or if that card is like in an unbroken set that's not tournament legal, I think that that's a very Sam Darnold thing, because we don't know where he is in his development. It could go in either direction. And then also as a quarterback, he's very aggressive. He loves tight window throws. He loves pushing the ball down the field. He plays it fast and loose with the potential for turnovers, or he has historically. And I think that kind of fits. And because there's an element of player damage or taking on player damage in order to make this character better, black, and because there's an element of chance, he could be a black-blue. I know that there's a bunch of multicolor cards out there. So this could be a black-blue because the chance element feels very blue. What are the other questions? I'm not doing flavor text. Oh, no, flavor text. I'm seeing ghosts out there. Obviously, that's the flavor text. Yeah, I think I answered this. Yeah.
Let's go to
Tell me if that's unbalanced. But yeah, 4 mana, 2/1, +2/+2 with a good coin flip. That seems like it could be unbalanced.
Well, we'll go to Nolan Kaler instead, who asks, given that Jack Carson Wentz is attempting to revive his career in the It's a Wonderful Life fashion, what could he do differently to ensure that his NFL career is more successful? How about not take that one hit that ruined his career in Los Angeles?
Well, no, he's way ahead of his past self, because he's actually playing the position he was supposed to play the whole time, long snapper. Because I believe Jack Carson Wentz is a long snapper. And hey, I've always said that Carson Wentz is a tight end. You know what position most often plays long snapper? It's not center, it's not guard, it's not tackle, it's tight end. This is perfect. Now, mind you, I'm contractually obligated to cheer against Jack Carson Wentz because he is a Carson Wentz of the multiple Carson Wentzes that have now inhabited this universe, or the 616 Carson Wentz. Yeah, I think that he's on the right track. He's playing the correct position, long snapper. So that helps. Other than that, what could he do differently? Well, he's going to a real school in the FBS. That helps. He's a Michigan State guy. And not that Michigan State's doing honor by the... I shouldn't talk. I'm a Gopher fan. The Big Ten went 17-1. The one was the Gophers. Yeah. So I can't.
And for those who aren't familiar, Arif was inundated with screenshots of a fellow that had Carson Wentz, the full name, on the back of his jersey.
Hyphenated name, by the way. It's Carson Wentz.
Yeah. And Arif may have lost it around the time of the 20th one that was sent to him.
It was a lot. I'm gonna assume that along the Wentz family tree, this is more on the Pete Wentz side and not on the Carson Wentz side. That's the only way. That I can't have another Carson Wentz, man.
He's gonna get drafted by the Bears, and it's gonna be amazing.
It was a rough 3 years before I finally got. Well, it wasn't exactly 3 years, but it was a losing the vindication and getting called out on both Philadelphia sports radio stations. It was a lot during the quote-unquote MVP season. It was a lot.
Well, Arif Wazowski asks, probably best for Packers week, but how does Justice feel about private equity investment devaluing his ownership of the Packers?
Please remind me to ask Justice this.
That is too good. Sick Rosa asks, who would win in a cage death match between Luke Braun and Mike Florio? America, right?
Yeah, we all would win. Secondary to that, I think right now, Mike Florio, I think in like a couple years, Luke Braun, I think Florio has a couple of things going for him. One, dad strength, has it. Two, he's like seen some stuff, man. Like his favorite team is West Virginia. Like he's seen some stuff, man.
You grow up hard if you're cheering for the Mountaineers.
Yeah. Three, Luke Braun is like a 16-year-old. That's tough, I think. But in time, I think Luke Braun, without even having to consider that Mike Florio is also going to age, I think in time Luke Braun will figure it out. He survived the hot wings challenge. He's toughening up. He's becoming a man. He's growing some hair on his chin. Not too many, as you can tell, but some.
Yeah. I am upset that you didn't ask him which number Case Cookus had while he was a Viking. That would have immediately sunk him.
Actually. Oh man, now I feel bad. We didn't ask people who are unfamiliar. Luke Braun lost the betting challenge that we do on the Minnesota Football Party. The loser had to do a hot wings challenge where we had 5 levels of hot sauce, kind of like First We Feast, hot ones. And we would ask him questions. If he got the question wrong, he had to eat another wing in the same sauce. And if you got it right, he could move on to the next wing, which is not a great reward for getting it right, but you eat fewer wings in the end when you do it. So I guess he's got that. But he only had to eat wings. I think he had to eat repeat wings twice, I think. And it just, that's not enough.
Needed to be much, much more. And the questions needed to be harder, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, that's on me.
Football's misandrist niche asks, considering the history of Minnesota pro sports, how much estrogen would we need to spike the Vikings players' food with before they win a Super Bowl?
Okay, so the PWHL Minnesota team, and I'm referring to them as that because they don't know none of the women's hockey teams in the PWHL have nicknames. They're all just like Minnesota and Boston. Like those are just the names.
Real Blades of Steel energy there.
Right. They're okay. Right now, they're in the middle of a crazy cursed crisis that is so classically Minnesota sports, but they won a championship. And so it just feels completely out of place in time for a Minnesota sports team. The PWHL won the most recent championship. The Minnesota Lynx are right now like the second best team in the WNBA or thereabouts. They've got the second best record at least, and have won just a good chunk of championships in the WNBA. The Minnesota Vixen, I don't think have won anything. They've been in of the various like women's tackle football leagues they've been in. They've been in, I think, recently like 2 championship games, but I don't think they've won either one. So that's kind of fitting in with the tradition. Otherwise, they're like quite good. They keep on making the playoffs. But yeah, it's even at the college level, right? Because the last championship, the Minnesota men's Gophers hockey, is that 2003? It's been a bit since they won a championship.
It's UND has won at least one since then.
Yeah, I know you know that.
Yeah, that's how I measure success at this point.
But the women's team, I think, has won like they've won 7 since 1998, which is when they were founded. And I believe they won like 2016 or something like that. The women's volleyball team is super successful. The women's basketball team has a stronger history of success than the men's basketball team. That's a long time ago. Like shout out Lindsay Whalen. On both the Lynx and the Gophers, honestly. But yeah, so I think the question, should we forcibly trans the Vikings against their will? John Money style. I guess. Sure.
Well, that'll be let's just have that be the quote out of context for this episode. We haven't had Norse context.
I don't see what could go wrong with that.
Norse context hasn't existed in a while, so Room Bolsharif asks, for James's financial corner, with the Arif stock rising due to partnerships, how do we get in on this racket? Can we buy shares in Arif? Will there be a dividend?
Well, it's James's corner, so it's you to answer.
I was saying that I was selling access to Arif in a Discord. So like,
what? You mean the Patreon?
Yes.
Oh,
the Patreon.
Wait,
yes, I wasn't referring to in person at all. It was great.
So wait, hold on. Were you auctioning a date with me? What's going on?
No, I'm not auctioning any date. I'm just saying if you find yourself in a pet shop someday and somebody says hi to you, I didn't hijack your calendar at all to make you go over there. It's fine. Just don't overthink it. All the fan interactions are real and not staged.
Okay. Very Truman Show kind of problem here now. Or gang stalking, actually. It's one or the other.
When they come up to you, are they doing product pitches? Are they doing full commercials?
But yeah, I will probably write a piece, maybe, I'm not going to commit myself to it, over at Wide Left about partnerships and because I've turned down 2 partnerships because actually the disparagement clause that I was making fun of with Pro Football Reference for. So obviously, like, I'll say the thing that everybody always says about partnerships that they take on. I'm only committing to partnerships with, products and services I believe in. It is a little bit different than the sponsorships or brand deals on platforms that I appear on. I don't negotiate those. I don't know what the terms are. I don't know what I'm allowed to say and not allowed to say. I actually don't even receive the money from them. I eventually get paid because those sponsorships occur on those shows, right? That's like what happens, or on those platforms or Google AdSense or whatever, right? But for Wide Left, because it is so deeply connected to like me as a person, like the brand, it can only be stuff that I'm okay with, both in terms of the product and the quality it offers. I've used Pro Football Reference forever, like ever since I started caring about football. I've been using the StatHead tool ever since they premiered it. I've been pretty critical of it at times, and I love it at other times. I think it's a wonderful tool. It's incredible. But I will not sign any partnership that won't allow me to be critical of the product, which really, really limits my opportunities. I've had to turn down a lot of money that I could really use because of that. There was one that I was offered in the pick'em / gambling space. So obviously on the Minnesota Football Party, they have a relationship with Prize Picks for pick'em and FanDuel for gambling. Again, I had nothing to do with how those are negotiated or whatever. But they don't restrict me from being critical of Prize Picks or FanDuel off platform. I just can't do it on the podcast. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do that Patreon episode that we did last time, April Fools, right? But in that space, I was offered a fairly lucrative deal. And I said, hey, I was thinking about doing a piece on, this pick'em / DFS / gambling space. And there was like a lot of rancor between some of these companies that, that's like pretty meaningful to consumers. There's a huge, I didn't write the story, so I can't really like get into it because I just didn't get enough to run. But there's a lot of battling behind the scenes between like these 6 or so companies that are in this space. They hate each other. Not all of them, and it's not like a 6-way battle. They've like made alliances and stuff like that. But it is pretty explosive. It certainly was more explosive in the summer than it is now, but it was like pretty big. And, I mentioned that I might be writing a story like this. I don't know if I will. And that your company's name might come up. And they're like, well, you can, if you're going to do this partnership with us, you can write the story, but you can't do anything that would make our company look bad and still maintain the sponsorship. Like, so you can't name the company as a bad actor in the story or make them come off as bad in the story. And I was like, oh, well, okay. There goes tens of thousands of dollars. Bye.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't do that. So that's how the partnerships are going. StatHead is not paying me. There's an affiliate link. So if you sign up, if you go to stathead.com and sign up for either the football package or the all sports package. With the coupon code wide left, I get a little kickback. But primarily they just want me to advertise that the tool exists. It's like less about the affiliate. And then I get a free StatHead subscription. That's my compensation. It's not very much. And then Ground News I mentioned earlier at the top of the mailbag. I haven't done anything with it yet, but if you sign up to Ground News and use the coupon code wide left, you'll get like a discount and I'll get a kickback, and that's nice. But the idea is that Ground News aggregates a bunch of news from a bunch of different sources, categorizes by right wing, center, left wing, and you could do a bunch of really interesting things to see which stories are covered by who. Like, is this mostly a story that's trending in, conservative spaces? This is mostly trending in liberal spaces. If they cover the story, how are they covering it? That kind of stuff. I think it's really fascinating. I think it's really cool that they do that, and it exposes you to a lot of news that you wouldn't have otherwise heard, given the bubble that you're in. I'm going to do a piece about that as it relates to football when something interesting in that sphere pops up. Might even be soon. And that's when I'll announce that partnership. But you can just do it now. You can go to Ground News and sign up for their service using the code wide left. But that's the partnership thing. No, you can't buy stocks. Yes, I've incorporated as a company that has stocks. No, you can't buy stocks in that company either.
No, you're just not allowed to join Arif at the party. Unless you speak to me off the show and we can figure something out.
God, Jesus.
Cam Xstorm asks, what's the biggest grudge that James and Arif currently hold?
Like with each other or like generally?
I think in general. I don't think I have any grudges against you at the moment. Although
there's the fake
impressive
D&D grudge.
Yeah, but it's also impressive you keep going to London and I don't. So I have a slight...
That's more resentment than grudge, right?
Yeah,
like
that resentment is the right word for that, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, okay, hold on. Are you still looking into going to I can't.
No,
like,
it's not going to end up working out. No, unfortunately.
Your spine is in flux. I understand.
Yeah, as it turns out, I didn't end up having surgery, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to necessarily need it. But there's all sorts of wonderful what ifs, and I would love to run some of this information to by a neurosurgeon, but alas, I have none at the moment. So I'm currently in a wonderful bit of limbo there. But anyway,
yeah. Oh, by the way, if you're going to be in and around London the week of the Vikings game, just contact me. I'd love to hang out. I mean, we're still going to try and figure out this show idea. Right? I don't know, but we haven't arranged for like another person to be there.
No, and Luke has said that I had the idea of surprising Arif with Luke. Luke apparently has decided that he isn't going. Something about high school football coaching that's important to him. I think it's all a ruse.
Yeah. Great. Good job, Luke. Cares about the people he has responsibility over. Jesus.
Fool.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we could just I could just hang out with people in London. Don't worry about it.
So this grudge thing.
Yeah. Do I hold a grudge again? Like, there's like grudges I hold that I don't make public that are actual grudges. And then there's like the beef I have with Luke, the beef I have with Solak, the beef I have with Lauren Cox, which honestly we haven't really been, pumping up on Twitter all that much. The beef I have with Justice, beef I have with Ben Natan, who isn't even on Twitter. Just a bunch of people that are like
more beef.
5 years younger.
It's more
than me.
beef than grudge at this point.
Yeah. Do I have a grudge against like a Vikings player? I can't.
I was gonna say, what about Michael Kist? Do you have a grudge against Michael Kist?
Yeah. No. Yeah, I do. He's a nemesis.
See?
You talk about a guy who's like striking book deals, by the way. I don't know if you... So here's a thing that you might not know about Michael Kist if you only know about him as like an Eagles guy. He's huge on Book Talk, like enormous on Book Talk. TikTok for books, if you couldn't figure that out from the portmanteau. Yeah, so Book Talk mostly sucks. I say this as somebody who generally enjoys books. Book Talk sucks because it's mostly people who have a very superficial reading of mostly young adult romantic fiction and what makes a good story and what makes a bad story. It's very checklist oriented. They do a very poor job discussing these issues. Michael Kist just shows up on TikTok, trashes some random history book, I think, because he loves history books, and blows up. And so now he's got deals with a bunch of different publishers to talk about books, and along the same lines, he gets to say whatever he wants, like, which is a great deal. Like, I think this is he told me this in confidence, so I won't say the name of the book or the author, but he's definitely turned down a bunch of money from a really big author to promote the book, because he was like, well, what if I don't like the book? And they were like, we're not paying you to not like the book.
Yeah, you have to like the book. That's how the check clears.
Yeah. So I wish I could accuse him of being a disingenuous book reviewer, but from what I know, he's not. But he's still selling out in a way that I'm not, in ways that I can't describe and requires too much nuance. He sucks.
I had an old roommate that things went south pretty quickly.
Oh, I have grudges against old roommates. Yeah, that's on the list.
I had a roommate that, and this will be related to I think the next question, but I had a roommate who we were like best friends. It was me moving to the cities in order to go to college and everything, and we were in a 1-bedroom and it didn't work out. Even the 2 months that I was there, we're like, no, one of us is spending the entire time being passive aggressive and awful, and the other is working at a bank trying to make money so that he can live somewhere else. And I did not enjoy working at the bank. So when I told him that I was moving out, he took all the pictures of us from the fridge, of which there were many apparently, and proceeded to rip my head out of each of them, like we were breaking up. And then he would drunkenly email me at like 3:00 in the morning saying this isn't over, and like expletive things, and declaring that I owed him a bunch of money and stuff. So I hold a grudge against him just because I didn't think that we had broken up, but here we were. Which is to bring myself to Damian Barrett's question of, for James's relationship corner, which of your exes is most likely to run for office? This is a dumb question for a reason that'll become evident in a moment, but I did think hard about this one. The funeral director would have a tough go of it trying to make a run. I feel she's incredibly smart, but I don't think that the past issues that she'd had would end up like working out for her. I think that would be an issue with the campaign. I dated a woman who was who had a very rich father and was in art school and graduated from art school. I think that the campaign would be fully funded by daddy, but the paranoid schizophrenia issues, literal, court mandated. That's why you got kicked out of the National Guard and you didn't tell me that until months after we started dating. Sorry. I think those issues would come up.
What were we saying about you holding grudges?
Jesus. I kept going back to that one. That was my fault. I'd mentioned Erin, but she's an anarchist, so that doesn't work. But it turns out, as I was going through my mental Rolodex, I actually did date a woman, albeit not a terribly long period of time, that is currently a city council member in the Twin Cities.
Oh, well, there you go.
So, as it turns out, that's the one. So, I feel better about that. Ingram's Left Arm asks, for Arif's fullback power rankings corner, can you break the news to James that the Chargers have a cooler fullback than Captain Ham?
Are you unfamiliar with the Ballad of Carson Steele?
That's not a story a Jedi would typically tell.
Well executed. So his Wikipedia page is nuts. So first, the college that he went to was Ball State. That helps.
Naturally.
He did transfer to UCLA at one point, but Ball State. And the Wikipedia page is like, it's just stories. Like, it doesn't really tell you much that a Wikipedia page would tell you. It's like, he has a pet alligator named Crocky J. And he's had that alligator since he was in first or second grade. That's really cool that he's got a pet alligator named Crocky J. This is included on his Wikipedia page due to his long blonde hair, fitness (parentheses less than 10% body fat), and talents as a running back. He received many nicknames at Ball State, including Thor, Fabio, and Man of Steel. Again, his last name is Steel, spelled with an E at the end. So Man of Steel with an E. Uh, Barstool Sports called him the most interesting man in college football. His freshman year, he squatted 615 pounds. He was on therefore, he was on Bruce Feldman's list of 100 freaks in football. There's like a bunch of stories about him. Half of them didn't even make this Wikipedia page. Anyway, his name is Carson Steele. He rules. I'm sorry.
I don't know how to take any of this information. This is difficult. Let's go to the final question, which is, have you ever gone full scorched earth after leaving a job, a la Zimmer? Feels like James has to have a story.
This feels like something more you would do than I would, because if I did, people would like know about it. Because like my employment history is like, oh, you worked for Pro Football Network and The Athletic and Zone Coverage and the Daily Norseman and Bleacher Report and Vikings Territory. Like I've worked for a bunch of places, and I don't think I've scorched earth any of them. I feel like people would know. So because the chances for that for me are basically zero, the chances for you are higher.
Well,
but it sounds like you haven't.
They just oh no, I got one.
Excellent.
It just seems like I've had an odd life. So of course I had to find myself in this particular situation at least once. The one that comes to mind, I'm just trying to think if there was any others that happened that no. I saved one place I worked at a huge amount of embarrassment by not going to the press about something or not hitting a delete button or something. But that doesn't count. The one that does count here is I worked at Amazon from July of 2001 until August of 2004, and I had worked the last 3 months of that job trying to make I had a Lewis Black moment. And you'll understand what I mean in a moment. But I had made a position in Seattle for myself, and it had I had helped write the position. I had done everything it was supposed to be. I had made it so that it didn't matter that I didn't have a college degree. I was doing this thing that was involving baby registries from Babies R Us to the U.S. Or to the U.S. website, and making it as like a baby registry like liaison thing. It was going to move me out to Seattle. I was going to have a new life or what. I was going to go out there instead of going to college, and I had that fall through when, after I interviewed, they changed a thing on it saying I needed a college degree, and they found a better me for the position. I didn't take this very well.
Wild.
I did not take this very well at all. I sat at and my boss knew it too. Like, my boss recognized this was going to cause me to leave, and was doing her best to placate me while I sat and stewed, because I knew that this was what I was trying to do. So there was no placating me. So when I put in my 2 weeks, she went, "Yeah, I figured." And on my last day, I
wait. Was this person just like definitely way more qualified than you for this position?
They left 3 months later
for a better job.
I don't know. I just know they left 3 months later.
Okay.
So I would have at least stayed for 6.
Chose poorly.
That. So I felt somewhat justified, but still incredibly annoyed at that moment. Like, if I would have stuck around, maybe I would have been able to, we decided we didn't need the thing that, yeah. So instead, on my last day, they took me off the phones, because we didn't really do phone support at the time. And I was just answering emails. And any person who emailed into Amazon that day that got me as the person who was answering their message, I gave them a free $10 to $15 Amazon gift card. At the very bottom of the email, we had a little thing that we could generate, and like a little promo code. And what they told us before is that if you have to give a refund, you give a refund. If you're able to just get away with, sending them $15-20, great. They'll spend it, and they'll end up getting more money out of it. So it's not something that's unique to Amazon, but it is something that, like, this is why store credit, you usually get more in store credit if you're trying to, like, return something or whatever. So I was like, okay, right. this is fine. And so what I did was I proceeded to answer like 80 emails that day, and I would include I'd answer my message, and then at the end, I'm sorry, apologies that you went through this inconvenience. I've enclosed a $15 gift card at the bottom of my signature. Use this in whatever. And I did this for every email I sent out that day. And it's not like they were going to fire me or yell at me afterwards, because this was something that, but it was literally like, if they asked if we had a book, I specifically made sure.
I'm sorry that you couldn't find the book.
Yep.
Even though it's clear that you didn't even search.
Yep. Here's a promo code that's worth more than the book. Find yourself a second book too.
We love books, don't we, folks?
It was, and I told someone afterwards that was like a team leader or whatever, when we went out to my farewell party. It's like, oh yeah, it was free promo day at Amazon. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, yeah, I gave away like a couple, like $1,000 or two in promos today. She's like, how did that not get flagged? Like, I don't know. They stopped caring about me around the time they didn't hire me for that thing in Seattle. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. So it was absolutely the get interviewed for the job to be me, and they found a better me thing. So that's the Lewis Black line. So that is about as close to Scorched Earth as I've ever done. It was good stuff. I recommend, if you find a way to do it, that's the best way to go out personally. I have found. But that is it for this episode of Norse Code. We hope you have enjoyed it. Special thank you to DrawPlayDave for annoying Arif for a long period of time there. Arif, what do you have to plug?
So just Wide Left stuff. Head over to Wide Left to see why I was wrong, or maybe right, about the kickoff rule. A lot of touchbacks in this game. So that's not great from a I think the kickoff rule is great perspective. But we'll have a couple more pieces following the opening weekend of NFL football over at wildleft.football. Otherwise, I still have my story about the intrusion of private equity into the NFL. Man, I feel like I've been so busy all week and I haven't written a word. It's been weird. I've been on a bunch of radio, a bunch of podcasts, this one. But yeah, it's mostly stay tuned, right? Because we're going to have a bunch of stuff coming out of the weekend.
Well, that's Arif. My name is James. Thank you guys so much for listening. And please remember, it's 4th and 12. You think they're going to run here? And we'll be back next week. Norse Code is the largest and only division of Norse Code LLC. You can find Norse Code on the Daily Norseman, SB Nation's Vikings blog at dailynorseman.com. You can also find it on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and wherever fine podcasts are aggregated. Our Vikings blogger extraordinaire and generally useful human is Arif Hassan of... And he can be found on Twitter at Arif Hassan NFL. I am your producer and host, and my name is James Pagashnik. You can find me at the show's official Twitter feed at NorseCodeDN or at my personal account at Big Mono. If you'd like to donate a few bucks to the show, you can do so in a couple of different ways. You can go to patreon.com/NorseCode and donate there. For $3.50 a month, you get bonus material and more. You can also go to paypal.me/NorseCode for a one-time donation, or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com and pick up some Norse Code merch. Any questions or comments that cannot fit in a tweet can be sent to norsecodepodcast@gmail.com. On behalf of the Norse Code staff, we thank you so much for listening.
Our formula is this.
Hey, all things are possible through the power of Ben DiNucci.